Hey, happy Tuesday, Singapore, Tokyo, United Kingdom, Cougar Nation, wherever you are. We're the wise guys, Dave McCann and Blaine Fowler. It used to be Tuesday was not the best day of the week, but it is the best day of the week.
Oh, yeah, easily.
We just taped AFR. That's just finished up on BYU TV, and then we rushed right over here to our undisclosed location, and we talked Cougars for 2 hours.
More and more people that have come to the studio now know it's disclosed to them now.
Yeah.
But they've been, whenever they come, we swear them to secrecy that they can't tell where we are.
Yeah.
For security reasons.
And there's not a lot of parking.
No,
Let's be honest. Hey, here's what just happened a short time ago. BYU basketball released their new uniform configuration for the coming season. Here it is. Gone is Brigham Young from the chest, and it is BYU. And as you see, Blaine, it is royal trim with the white and just the opposite for the road jerseys. And we will see them November 7th when they open up against Idaho State live on BYU TV. You and I will be on the call, and those are the jerseys we'll see. What do you think?
I really like them. What I saw just a bit ago, I think it pops. It's clean. Yeah, I really, really like it. And Nike's really visible there.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's a really, really good look.
It'll be a really, really good look when the team's up by like 25 points. Then I think everyone's going.
And you know, the people know when I'm back east and I say Brigham Young University, I mean they're like, oh yeah. When I go BYU, they just know who BYU is. That just rolls off the tongue. So I like just BYU on the jersey. I think that's the what people relate to. And to me, I want the basketball unis to just be clean and look good, and those ones look really good.
So that's fresh and new. We looked at their schedule last week, and of course Mark Pope was on with us a couple of weeks ago, and he'll be on with us again. So some basketball news right out of the gate. We want to remind you to subscribe to our weekly email. It's on our homepage, ysguys.com. You just fill out your name and your email, and then you get highlights from the show. Because let's be honest, people are busy on Tuesday. They might not have 2 full hours of us in their life, but they get this email, they get the highlights from the show, and then they find out all the things they need to know.
Right. There's a bunch of ways you can join in with us. Come with us live on Tuesday nights, like those that are on with us right now. BYU Sports Addicts already chimed in. And then, but there's also the podcast that you could download and listen to in your car. There's the highlights that come out. We're out on YouTube. We're on every podcast platform that you can think of.
Look at all those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways that you could watch it, and you could just go to the site, ysguys.com, and you can click and see just bits and pieces of interviews or entire interviews. However you want to do it, join us for the full 2 hours. Join us after the fact and watch it for a whole 2 hours. Listen to whatever you want to do.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. Just get a slice of whatever.
We're everywhere for you, and we'd love for you to subscribe and do all of that stuff too. We got a big show tonight, some awesome guests. Let's roll the tease of what we've got coming up tonight. Of course, we're going to break down the Oregon game, give you our take on how a top 10 finish is still possible. A New Year's Six bowl is still possible within BYU's reach, despite what we saw last weekend in Eugene.
Yeah, hey, and coming up tonight, we got a great show ahead. We're going to call it Receiver Night tonight because on the Wise Guys, we have 2 of the best to ever suit up at BYU. Margin Hooks is coming on to join us in just a few minutes here at 6:15, and then Austin Collie is going to join us at 7:15.
So receiver night, because they say it's better to give than receive, except for this show tonight.
Right.
We've got the receivers.
No, we're going to give.
And we're going to give.
We're going to give the receivers to everybody out there. So.
Austin Collie may be the best that ever suited up at BYU, and Margin Hooks is right behind him.
Yeah, and I just so wish Austin hadn't been knocked around so much in the NFL and had the concussion issues, because he was on a run where he was playing in dominating fashion in the NFL and was quick becoming Peyton Manning's favorite receiver with the Colts. And it was fun to watch his skill set translate to the next level and then just really cut short with concussions.
And we're going to talk to him. His 3 quarterbacks that he had caught passes from, Max Hall, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. So we've got a few questions about that.
And I think he went on a golfing trip with all the old with Keel and all. We had Keel on with us. Was it last week? I think he joined that golfing trip down to SoCal. We'll have to find out who won that extravaganza, the SoCal golfing extravaganza.
We're going to discuss the Wyoming Cowboys. They're up next for BYU Saturday night. Game details and game day details are coming up as well.
And tonight, along with receiver night, we also have one of the greatest of all time. So we call him the GOAT when we talk about track and field
Absolutely.
and cross country, Olympian and BYU track and cross country coach Ed Eyestone is going to join us and talk about how he plans to replace two-time national champion Connor Mance.
How's that even possible?
That's not an easy task, is it? But
No.
Ed always seems to find somebody great to develop. So,
and they got a big meet coming up at Oklahoma State, so it's perfect timing to have Ed Eyestone on with us. I bumped into him on campus the other day, and I didn't recognize him because of his mustache, and he's wearing a hat. And we got to talking, and I'm realizing, oh, my gosh, this is who I'm talking to. I'm talking to an Olympian.
Yep. No, sometimes he's just got to go low-key because it's hard. It's hard up on campus being Ed Eyestone, so sometimes you have to wear a hat, grow a mustache.
Hey, get your questions ready for Margin Hooks.
Go low-key.
And Austin Collie and for Ed Eyestone. AP Top 25. BYU slipped from 12 to 19 after the loss on Saturday. Oregon jumped from 25 to 16. And Baylor is 17. Future opponent Arkansas sitting at number 10. Any poll position surprise you?
I was actually – I thought BYU would be between 20 and 23. I thought 20 was probably wishful thinking. So, honestly, I was really, really pleased that BYU only went to 19. That shows you how much credibility Oregon has at home, right?
Yeah, and as we sit here on this Tuesday, and we're going to talk about Saturday. Saturday was another football game without Puka Nacua and Gunnar Romney. Of course, the number one question throughout Cougar Nation is, all right, what about this week? What about Saturday night? Will we see Puka and will we see Gunnar? Could we see both? Will we see one of them? I know you're working your phone for some answers, but what do you think? Are we going to see them both?
So I think we're going to see both Gunnar and Puka.
Do you? On Saturday?
Yeah. And the nice part about Gunnar is that, like, his injury didn't keep him from running and lifting and doing all that. Yeah. So I feel like when Gunnar comes back, he's going to be like fresh legs, like it's the first game of the season, feeling great, right?
Right.
He's going to still have all that bounce and all that speed, and I think he's going to have an immediate impact. I think Puka probably comes back this week too, but Puka's coming back from an ankle injury, and so he's got to kind of run himself back to where he's strong and feel like he can cut and all that. I feel like Gunnar's going to be at full speed. But I feel like this week you got to get them both back because then you can build through a couple of games before you've got Notre Dame and Arkansas back-to-back.
We'll look for that. And so Saturday on game day, BYU Sports Nation game day, we'll be on the air at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. We'll have our cameras in the stadium, and we'll be keeping an eye on whether those two come out to warm up and catch some passes. And if they do, and BYU, let's say, gets the ball first or whatever, whenever they get the ball, and that offense runs out onto the field in front of 60,000 plus, and Puka and Gunnar are out there with that starting group, it'll be like Christmas come early, and that energy will be interesting.
Yeah, they're game-changing, dynamic players, right? Yeah. So, I really feel strongly that they'll both be back this week, and that makes BYU a better football team.
Sure.
When they're both back. And like I said, I feel like Gunnar will be full speed ahead, and I don't know if Puka's going to be full speed, but I feel like you build, and then you have them both full speed by the time you play Notre Dame and Arkansas.
Absolutely. And then you're in business. Those guys are going to be tough to guard.
Well, and then think about it. They've developed. Chase Roberts has really stepped up and developed with those two out, and Hill has done a really nice job. And then we saw Epps this last week step up in a big way. Cosper's made a lot of catches. So the one thing it's done is it's really made BYU a much deeper group at wide receiver than they were, with better experience, and now lots of guys to have to worry about. You throw those two back in, two NFL-type receivers, with the depth of the young guys that they have now, and all of a sudden BYU's hard to match up with on the outside and in the slot.
There are two stories coming out of Oregon. Let's talk about the second first. The fans in the stands, and I watched some video, and there were a bunch of them. It wasn't a group of 5 or 10 or 15 doing the chant "F you Mormons" over and over and over and over and over, and it was the same chant at the USC game last November.
Right.
So post game is Apology Central from USC, football coach, athletic director, school president, all that in November. The next game in a Pac-12 venue is last week against Oregon. These are the top two. These are the crown jewels of the league. And I wrote about it in the Deseret News. The crown jewels of the Pac-12. And so what do we see in the post-Oregon stuff? Apology after apology. Even today, the head football coach came out and apologized for the actions of of a few consider, there are 50,000 people at the game, but this wasn't 5 or 6. This was a concerted effort, and that's why it's gotten so much attention. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing as a human being. It's not FU BYU, which is still appalling to shout at somebody. They didn't. It's a religion they're going after, and it's so stupid and embarrassing to witness. Embarrassing that we even have to talk about it here in 2022. That these giant fan bases, when you go to their stadium, this is what BYU fans are peppered with. And it's stupid and embarrassing and totally uncalled for.
It's religious bigotry.
Yeah.
That's just what it is, and it's wrong. And I just don't see. I don't think you're going to see it in the Big 12. I think it's a Pac-12 thing. That's a commentary on that league and what they tolerate. They're too tolerant on things like that. Now, I will say this: if they were in BYU's stadium and some students in BYU student section started yelling something that was foul and offensive, I would expect the other students and the people sitting around that group to shout them down. Just say, hey,
we're not doing that.
We don't do that in our stadium. Right. We're the hosts here. That's ridiculous. That's religious bigotry. That's whatever it is. I would expect people in the stands to step up and take control of that, or go get security and say, hey, we tell these people to stop. It's bothering all of us around here. Because I would imagine it would bother good-willed Oregon fans as well. Because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great Oregon fans that are going, oh, man, that's embarrassing. And
but do something about it.
The football coach is saying it's embarrassing. Yeah. And it's on video. And
the same thing with USC, large groups of people, large enough to have a stadium chant going. And you know what else I don't have a lot of patience for is the BYU fan that just says, they were kidding, or it's a joke, or enough. We get. I wear it as a badge of courage. That is BS. We don't wear that as a badge of courage. That whole mentality is what chased the pioneers across the United States. Ousted from one place after another. F them, we don't care about them. And so here in 2022, that chant in a public venue is not acceptable, and it's not sour grapes, and it's not winding that it happened. It's we're sick of that, and it's
like you said, it's not nice to say that about BYU, but they weren't saying BYU.
No.
They were saying more. They specifically picked out the religion. The thing that's ironic about the whole thing is their best player on their defense is Sewell, who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they have multiple players on that team over time. The best defender probably in the history of that university is Haloti Ngata, who's LDS.
Yeah. The ignorance is off the charts. And the USC ignorance totally off the charts.
And, their coach needs to apologize because it's he's got to recruit some of those. They like to recruit those really good. Oh, yeah.
Hey, don't mind that. Those are students. You're going to class with them. Yeah. That's who we are.
And they're out on the field representing you, so please stop it.
All right, so we're done talking about that, but we just wanted, it's been in the papers again today since their coach came out, and you can read more about it in the Deseret News. But the two crown jewels of the Pac-12 need some public polish. The USC and Oregon to be playing those, and BYU plays at Stanford. Who knows what will happen at the end of the season? I have a feeling that BYU fans will outnumber Stanford 10-1.
Stanford fans are a whole different deal because they don't really care.
They don't even care about their own team.
They have the students come to the tailgate, and there's tons of, you walk, because remember, my son-in-law played there, and we would go to games, and this is when they were a top 5 football team with Christian McCaffrey. Dallas was playing free safety. They were winning Rose Bowls. And we'd walk through the tailgate, and I'd go, wow, there's going to be a good crowd here today, especially look at all the students. They'd be out at the tailgate, and then nobody would make their way into the stadium to watch the game. It's like I was like, what is going on around here? So they're a little too apathetic at Stanford.
And then the next one after that's up at Utah in 24. And who knows? That might be a Big 12 game by then.
But I don't think Utah's fans would tolerate that chant.
No, because they get it too.
Utah's fans would step up.
Yeah, they hear it when they go.
It's a heated riverry, but the Utah fans and the BYU fans would draw a line at that. Yeah. I think.
I think so. I think they have. There's a few radicals here and there, but the Utes hear it too when they go on the road. I'm sure they heard plenty in the swamp, but nothing like this. And and it's a national thing. It deserves much more national attention than it's going to get. But now the wise guys have talked about it, and we go all over the world. The game didn't go BYU's way. It was 41-20, and the Ducks they rushed it all game long. Outrushed BYU 212-61. Just couldn't get off the field. Couldn't stop them on fourth down. They scored on 6 straight possessions. It was like Blaine, that we had a game plan prepared for one thing, and Oregon came out and did another.
Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. But you've got to do a better job of adjusting. So, what happens in this game, you're playing an Oregon team with a brand new staff, and including a brand new offensive coordinator. And in their opener against Georgia, I think to everybody's surprise, they kind of went out and ran what Oregon on offense has been doing for years. And I think maybe in the coach's mind, they're thinking, you know what? We're coming in here. We've got all these athletes that were recruited to run this spread and perimeter game. So much speed. Maybe we need to kind of stick with what they've done and what they know. And as we can morph this offense as we recruit and bring our kinds of guys in, right?
Yeah.
And then they just got hammered by Georgia. And then I think they said, you know what? Let's run our stuff. Let's put in the packages. Let's put in some different packages. Let's do what we know. Let's get in some big sets and bring 3 tight ends in or 2 tights, and let's run some power and let's run some counter, like stuff that Oregon traditionally hasn't run.
Yeah.
And they didn't need it for Eastern Washington. This is where I think they were brilliant. I believe they worked on it for a couple of weeks to implement these new wrinkles to their offense. They ran the same kinds of things they did against Georgia and had no problem against Eastern Washington because they just completely outmanned that FCS team. And they came into that game and they caught BYU off guard. BYU prepared for the Oregon offense that was run at Georgia and at against Eastern Washington. And they were expecting perimeter attack, and Oregon ran it at them. And BYU, as they tried to make adjustments, first of all, I think the staff could have made them a little quicker. And then secondly, when they finally did try to make some adjustments, the players didn't do a great job. They kind of let that big environment and all that noise and confusion get to them as they're trying to transition and play a different style of defense to address that attack. They were in the wrong gaps. They were taking the wrong angles. They had a ton of missed tackles. The missed tackles were because, not because Oregon's so fast. They are fast. So is Baylor. But against Baylor, Baylor's run the same thing for a couple of years. BYU is in the right gaps. Guys are playing in the hole where they're supposed to be, downhill, with confidence. They're in a square position to make a play. And against Oregon, I'm in the wrong gap. He's running over there. Now I'm diving out and sticking my arm out. Guys in the wrong places, taking the wrong angles. And I believe they let that environment get to them. So their heads were spinning a little bit. They weren't thinking well. And so BYU as a team and as a staff didn't do a good job of adjusting to that great game plan that Oregon brought. And then when you get on your heels, like my son Kellen and Dave Nixon played in a game, they reminded me when they played Tulsa a number of years ago back there, and they got on their heels, and it was just like they just couldn't. You just can't do anything right, and you just feel overwhelmed, and you're second guessing, and then they're coming at you with the next play. And that doesn't mean that you're not good. That means that you had a really bad day in a really rough environment.
And we all have bad days.
With a not-so-good game plan, right?
Yeah. The good news is we can fix all that.
Yeah.
That's fixable.
If the team just knocks you off the ball 5 yards, and you can't tackle guys because they're running right over the top of your guys, or their wide receivers are running past you all game long because you don't have the speed to keep up with them, well, there's not much you can do about that, is there? But none of those are the case. BYU got out-schemed, and they executed so horrifically. All those things can be fixed. If you got speed and physicality and those kinds of things, you can fix those things. And so here comes Wyoming. Wyoming's not going to come with a whole new offense. They run what they run. Bowl, who's the head coach, does a great job with that group. But BYU knows what to expect. I expect them to have a much better game plan, to play faster without hesitation, to take better angles, to be in their gaps and be more disciplined, because that's what they were for the first 2 weeks. That's what they were against Baylor. And so it should be a good situation. And BYU has a couple of games here to get their mojo back here at home.
Question from one of our streamers about, there's a rumor floating around late today that Dallin Holker might be considering a transfer that the tight end room wants more passes. They're not getting a whole lot of passes. Isaac Rex got one for a touchdown on Saturday. Holker got one. I'm not sure where we're at on that. Any more stuff that flies out on social media?
Everybody all out on the internet today is always talk about Dalton Holker transferring. And you know what? He might. And he's obviously not happy with the distribution of the tight ends.
Right.
So I'd ask this question. Who transfers when they're a sophomore on a team that's been ranked for the last 3 years, will likely end up ranked again this year, could be in a New Year's Six, is on the rise, is going into a Power 5 conference. And all the rumors on the internet are that he's going to Utah, where they feature the tight ends. Well, if he was at Utah right now, he would be their third guy. He's not going to be in front of Kincaid, who's a veteran. He's not going to be in front of Keithy, who's an NFL guy and a veteran. He'd be the third tight end there right now. So he wouldn't be catching more balls there right now. Now, Kincaid's going to graduate. I think Keithy's also so done. So maybe he's thinking, well, next year I'm the guy, and Isaac Rex is. So it's just interesting. This young impatience that young players have, and I don't know enough about this situation to say that.
And we'll see.
But let's just say this in general.
Yeah.
The impatience that young players have is disturbing.
Well, Ty Detmer was talking about that.
And it's ill-advised. And Ty talked to us about that.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. You stay patient, you grind, and good things happen to you. But we've seen it all out on the internet. That could happen. Now, remember, if he is going to transfer, he can't transfer to the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yes.
So if all of a sudden he is, and that's true, and we're not saying that it is, well, what do you do between now and then?
Yeah. So that's why we'll see. We'll see about practice next couple of days.
It'll be really interesting.
But it's floating out there.
So we're not confirming or denying.
No.
We're
discussing.
We have heard this because it's all over the internet today. So we're just and when I say, I'm not saying that Dalton Holker is doing. I'm just saying that this is the mentality of a lot of young players. That I'm not happy with my role here. I'm going to go someplace else. And we've seen a lot of those transfer and not have a better role at the other place.
Our first guest tonight caught at least one pass in 36 straight games as a receiver for Lavelle Edwards between 1997 and 2000. He finished with over 2,800 career receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. A pleasure to welcome Margin Hooks, live from Dallas, Texas, to the Wise Guys. Margin, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad you guys have me on.
Margin, it's so good to see you, and we're so glad to have you on. This is great.
Look, if the Dallas Cowboys have a couple more injuries at receiver, are you on their speed dial over there?
I'm way past the click days. My body is shut down if I try to put some on.
I think the catching skills will never leave you, but the hamstrings might not hold up, right?
Oh, the hamstring's not even gonna make it. I can catch all day. And I tell people, as you get older, you just learn a better communication game. I just talk a lot of noise, but I'm not gonna do anything.
Hey, one of our streamers, and we're all over the world here tonight, is we're actually building the largest gathering of BYU fans online in prime time in the world, and this you can confirm this or not. Are you the last BYU player to wear number 14?
I am. Then they retired. Matter of fact, I talked to Ty about that. I thanked him for getting the jersey retired. I tell people, my jersey retired. And they're like, oh, really? That has nothing to do with me. It was retired.
Number 14 is indeed retired.
The great Gifford Nielsen and of course with Ty. When you win a Heisman Trophy, they usually retire it, don't they?
Yeah, they should. Yeah, they should. Hey, you wore the bibs.
Yeah, they should.
You wore the bibs back in the day. What did you think of those bib jerseys?
Yeah, I did. You know what? I like the bib. The big guys didn't, because right in the area of the bib where they probably in the stomach area, it was kind of made it look a little funny, kind of like a little penguin. So the big guys didn't like it. I actually liked it.
They looked okay. If you were sleek and fast, it looked good. But
and if we were ahead, it always looked good if we were ahead.
So what Margin's saying is it made the fat guys look fatter than they really were, and that's never good. That's never good.
I never do it. And I have some of them give me calls. Why you put us out there like that?
Hey, Margin, you were a standout receiver at Waco High School in Waco, Texas, coming out when he came to BYU. That Baylor win 2 weeks ago, was that just a little bit sweeter for you with your background and growing up there?
Oh man, it was lovely. Oh man, I didn't have to. I mean, I talked so much noise before the game, and afterwards I was just silent. I just looked at people, and they're looking at me crazy, and they're like, "But you're from Waco?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from there." But, I tell people, I train a lot of guys. So I'm like, you'll never see me put on another school colors unless my son goes somewhere. Other than that, I'm BYU through and through.
I love that.
Hey, another question coming in. Which BYU receiver, current or former, reminds you the most of you?
Ooh.
Yeah, there's been some good ones.
There's been some, man.
And they got some good ones right now.
There's some good ones there now, man. And they're different type. I look at myself, I was more of a smaller compared to some of these guys that's coming in. I was like a tweener. I wasn't the smallest, but I wasn't the biggest. Man, it's so many. I just call a lot of them. I feel their game probably way beyond where mine, was. But just off the top of my head, I can give you some that I like, but like me, I don't even know. I don't even know what I was like.
Well, as I'm thinking back to when you were playing, you had the great speed to be able to stretch a defense, but you could run the routes and come like just kind of a great combo guy. And you could play out on the outside, but if they needed you to play in the slot, you could do that. And I'm wondering, Epps just kind of had a standout game this last week with Puka and those guys gone. And Epps has kind of got that speed to stretch the defense, and he had some great back shoulder throws. I'm wondering if Epps could develop into somebody like Margin. And then somebody else said, one of our guys just said, hey, Blaine, what about Hill?
Keanu Hill.
And Keanu's a taller version of Margin, but a lot of the same skills.
Is a big body.
Yeah, he's a big body.
I worked with him during the summer. I wasn't like that. I don't know, because I was like a tweener. People ask me, you're inside guy, outside guy. Like, I lined up all over the field.
Yeah.
The only place I didn't like lining up, now these guys, I was like, they put me on the wing to block it was a stretch play going away from me. I had to hinge and block the backside in. And it was like a bear swatting a fly when he slapped me. That's the only thing I hate. I'd never do that again. And they laughed at film. Like, all you can see is me wrapping my legs around the defensive end's legs, trying to trip him. They looking at the film. I'm like, he didn't make the tackle, though. But I'm like, that's the only part of the field. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore. But, with Lavelle and Norman, their offense, you just lined up. I lined up everywhere.
Yeah, all over.
Slide, whether it's outside, it's all over. So, now they have things kind of scheme where, okay, you're an inside guy. Okay, you're an outside guy, like that. So it was just, during those times, it's your receiver. Where we say line up, you line up.
When you broke the huddle and you go line up and you see that you've got a linebacker on you, are you just licking your chops?
Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. I would look at the quarterback and give him kind of like this eye. True story, we played against New Mexico and played this Brian Urlacher. He played all over the field.
Oh, yeah.
That may have been one of the smartest, most athletic dudes I've ever seen in my life. One particular, I was in the slot, and he came up on me. And I'm sitting, I think he looked in my eyes. When I looked at him, like, oh, it's over. And at the last minute, I had a post route, and he bailed to the middle of the field. And I'm running the post, and he's standing back there laughing. I'm sitting there like, dude, I mean, it was like annoying. Like he just a student of the game. Now, so I probably gave it away because I got so fidgety, like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're a big dude. No, I'm going to run past you. And he was just driving. He was just laughing. I mean, he looks like, got you that time. I'm like, yeah, how you know?
Well, so, he was one of the most dominating defenders in the National Football League for about a decade. He was the best player.
It was.
A dude that big's not supposed to be able to run that fast, right, Margin?
No, and he lined up and played receiver. He returned punts. He returned kickoffs. He did like a linebacker, safety. He did everything. I'm just like, man. And he had like one offer out of high school. He goes to New Mexico, and he made the best out of it.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, man, he did. Hey, you mentioned that you work with Keanu Hill in the offseason, help him work on his stuff. Part of this, what appears to be one of the deeper receiving cores BYU's had in a while. Talk to us a little about Keanu and his development, but also about this whole receiving core and your thoughts on where they stand.
Man, Keanu spent a lot of time with me. He's originally from Texas, Dallas area.
Yeah.
So he reached out to me and was like, man, can I work with him? He was coming like 3-4 times a week, just getting polished. Because in high school, he went to a school that didn't even throw the ball. So when BYU recruited him, they recruited just a raw kid, raw talent. He had no skill set at all. Mm-hmm. So He played receiver. They would ask me, "Do you know about him?" I'm like, no, I don't know anything about him. But he's a hard worker. He maximizes everything he has. He's not a blazer, but he can move for a big guy. And with him, the main thing we worked on was just a mentality and mindset. I tell a lot of these guys. I heard you guys talking earlier about the guys want to transfer quickly and all of that.
Yeah.
And really, one thing I preach to my guys is a mindset and mentality that you got to have when you go into these situations. It may not be going your way, and patience is key because it's for football. It's a barbaric sport, so you never know what's going to happen. And all it takes is that one glimmer, a chance. And if you're prepared to step into that hole, you take off. And you're correct. The grass is not always green on the other side. So, back to those guys there, they have a great receiving core. I mean, when you got Puka, Nakua who's there. You also have Gunner. I mean, Puka, when he was in high school, he actually came to Texas and did some work with me.
Yeah.
Just before senior year. And it was just something to show him something different. And I remember him telling me, he's like, "Coach, I've never seen any guys this big and this fast." He's like, "What are they?" I said, "They're DBs." They're like, "That's actually a linebacker who's actually starting in Oklahoma." I was like, "These are some dudes." So I want to expose him, show him something different, so when he can realize, there's a confidence factor that I can play with these dudes. It's not just, no, you're not going to see anything like this in Utah, but you're going to see when you go play wherever you go to BYU, you can play around the country. And, just looking at those guys and how those young guys stepped up this past game and made some plays, I think BYU's, has a great, future ahead of them.
We're visiting with former BYU receiver Margin Hooks on the Wise Guys. A few questions about the Oregon game from our streamers tonight. We want to start. Let's start with just some of your general thoughts. There were games that you guys went to that we all have beatdowns, whether in life or on the football field, but we all get them.
Some of those. Yes, sir. I remember when we played Syracuse my senior year, and we got dog walked. It was like, wow. It was hard. We got dog. It was like, what in the world is going on? Then I realized later on when I went, I played pro ball. I realized some of those guys who I played with, these are like all pros right now. With Dwight Freeney and those dudes, I didn't know. Yeah. But at that time, they were like, man, they ran through us. Some teams, and you just can't. You're just reeling, and you're trying to get your feet in. It's like you're just insane, just sliding. You're trying to fight, you just sliding, and then all of a sudden you just slip, and everything it's just like a snowball effect in some games. And it happens. It happens to some of the best teams.
That sounds exactly what happened up in Eugene on Saturday.
Yeah. How do you recover from that though, and get your mind right to play?
That comes with the mindset. That comes with the mindset now that, okay, that happened. I always tell kids, I always want to look at when things don't go right. This I can tell your character. How do you come back from that? When everybody loves smiling, everything's going, great. But when it's rough, and it's for the nation to see, how do you come back? So I think this Wyoming game, those first 2 to 3 minutes, whether it's offensively or defensively, have to be, I think it's going to be emotional. It has to have an emotional kick with it at the beginning. So you can just kind of cool through the game, get everything going, get all those jiggers. Because you got to think in those meetings, with the coaches, and they're putting the red dot on you in the film saying, pointing out your mistakes, your errors, but now can we correct them? Can you correct them, and get the game plan over here? And now let's correct the ship and let's go from there and, win the rest of the game. So I think that's key. And I think that's, the QB, I think he's going to be important with that, just kind of getting those guys their confidence going, receivers, O-line, whatever it may be defensively, those key guys out there, it's going to be some seniors, or not necessarily seniors, but some of those top guys that have to, bring everybody together. Let's ride this game. Let's play for each other. Let's go.
BYU's going to play Utah State next week in what will be the final time in a long time. In fact, we're not even sure when they'll ever play again. Was that a fun rivalry game to be in? And are you happy to see it go and BYU's moving on to bigger things?
There was like an annoying rivalry because it was like at BYU, you're supposed to win. But those guys it was their Super Bowl when you played them, especially when you go up to Logan. Yeah, it's like, man, there's so much that could go and happen. And I was in some close games up there. We never lost to them, but it was some game where you like nail biting. You had to win at the end. Just, that fan, that crowd base, it was rough up there, So it's gonna be something that's, I think, those that didn't have opportunity, those guys who come up didn't have the opportunity to participate in, it's going to be missed. But it was fun. It was fun playing.
Is it okay that maybe some of those things, like in the Utah rivalry, is even going to have to take a back seat and they'll only play occasionally? Is that all worth it for BYU to be in the Big 12?
I think it is. You take a couple of coins and now go get all the coins.
Yes.
You take two teams out. It's like, I tell people all the time, it's 4 minus 4 equals 8. And they look at me like, what do you mean? If you get a sheet of paper and you cut the 4 corners off, that creates 8 corners and 8 sides. So I look at it in that manner. Yeah, you don't have Utah. You don't have Utah State. But look at what you're bringing in.
Yeah.
And then just being in a conference like the Big 12, the national notoriety, playing big-time teams. I mean, I think it's going to be great.
It seems like that Baylor BYU, lot of respect. Like Dave and I had a chance to sit down with their president when she was up here for the game. Baylor's been fantastic, your old hometown, in all sports. And it feels like that might be a really good natural rivalry for BYU. It's a faith-based Christian institution, high-level sports program. I mean, do you see that? Is that something that could blossom as a rivalry for BYU?
I think it could. I just, by them playing twice, there's 2 times even before, no other team in the Big 12 has played any other teams outside that are coming in, but BYU and Baylor. So I think this being acquainted, just as institutions, I think it could be a natural rivalry that could happen. And I know back in the day, BYU actually did play Baylor. I think like when Jim McMahon was there, something like that. I always just asked Lavelle to play Baylor. He would look at me like, for what? I want to go home and play. So it was. I think it's really. I mean, it's a cool situation.
Well, speaking of rivalries, you caught 3 passes for 25 yards in Lavelle's final game. We had Brandon Doman on a few weeks ago. A wild comeback to beat Utah 34-27. How important was it to send Lavelle out with a win?
Man, it was very important. Man, that was a different game for me. I snapped my hamstring that game. That's why I didn't even play the second half. So it was a chance. I'd always played every play.
Yeah.
And I was out the entire, I played like the first 2 quarters, played 2 quarters. And I think I had 1 touchdown called back, big time penalty. Then I remember my hamstring being slow. I think I heard it the week before in the last home game. I strained it. And then I know the last pass I caught was like H&X scat, 3rd and like 3. I caught it, turned to go field, and my hamstring was popped. And I remember going against Andre Dyson, and they put me in. I went to go run, supposed to be like a 15-yard dig, and it ended up being like a 4-yard stop. And I was done, but I enjoyed for once being a fan and cheering my teammates on, and seeing some of those guys like Jonathan Pittman make plays, Brandon Doman made some big plays, Soren Holiday, who came in and spelled me, Mike Regale, watching those guys make plays, Tavita Ofungawe, man, it was Brian McDonald, just watching those guys battle, Chris Holt, Hans Olsen, Justin Enna, just watching those guys go out there, man, and do battle. And even though I wasn't there, just being able to see that, it was good for me, even though I hate for it to have to be like that.
Yeah.
But it was neat for me to just kind of experience that.
You just named a list of all-time greats.
It's hard to believe all those guys were on the same team.
That's pretty amazing. And we're going to take you to one where I don't think you pulled your hammy. Back in September 27th, 1997, it's your first career touchdown in the Cotton Bowl Stadium playing SMU. You had one pass catch, but 32 yards for a TD. What do you remember about that one?
Doghouse. John didn't want to. He benched me. Games we played. Man, you got to think, when I went to BYU, it was different for me. I wasn't your typical BYU receiver. When I got there, the coaches thought I was a DB. No one ever looked at me like, "Oh, you're a receiver." I remember Coach Schmidt walking into the office room like, "Oh, okay, all DBs, come over here." And I'm sitting up, and he's looking at me like, "Well, say it, all DBs." I'm like, "I'm a receiver." He's like, "Look like a receiver." I mean, it was like that. So with Norm, it was one of them love-hate situations, man. With Norm, I went up and down. There's stories I have that people don't even know. That people know, they're like, "Man, I didn't know you went through all that." But yeah, he benched me. I had a hamstring at Arizona State, so they worked me out. So I was at play. So he was pissed or something. I mean, I never missed practice or anything. So I didn't play until the fourth quarter. And my family and everybody's in the stands watching. Friends, everything. I'm on the bench. So he was looking for a receiver and no one's around. So he was like, and I stood up. It's like, okay, I'm trying to put the play. Get in. So he put me in and then, called him back out. And we kept looking for another receiver. I guess someone hurt or whatever the situation was. And he put me back in and the play was like red right 63, and I just got the backside dig and I had a post route there in cover 3. The safety kind of stayed flat to look at the dig route. And it was Kevin Frederick threw it up, lobbed it up in the end zone, man. I caught him back in the end zone. I remember coming to the sideline, him telling me, "Don't ever piss me off again." And it's like, dude, really? I mean, it was some stuff, man, that people don't know that I dealt with.
Yeah.
I mean, not in the bad way that I saw, and it was just like, man, and going back to my senior year was a rough year. I told someone, I said, for the record, I need like 900 some yards. My senior year, I played with 3 different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have the luxury of having, just a Max Hall or just a John Beck or just a Jim McMahon or even just a Ty Detmer. You went through a bunch of quarterbacks in your career.
Quarterbacks. I said none of my quarterbacks even went pro. If I tell people, I'm like, so I need to put an asterisk by my name. I'm not saying they were bad quarterbacks, but I'm like, I didn't have that,
Now look, your biggest night is against Washington in the 1999 home opener. 8 receptions, 140 yards, and a touchdown in a 35-28 victory. So you were the big man on campus for that one.
Yeah, for that one, it's one of the things where my junior year was great. Kevin was a senior, Frederick. So we were running, they switched the offense around kind of like that. We got dog walked by Tulane in the bowl game. So they went there and looked at their offense. And it kind of helped me just to be that X receiver where I was just on the single side by myself a lot. So if it was one high safety, the ball came my way. You just had to, be in position to go make the plays, And I tell, guys, I'm like, it was just different, with how the game has evolved and changed. It's so different. I said, you have a good advantage. You have coaches. I never even had a receiver coach the whole time I was at BYU. Yeah,
because Norm was coaching the receivers, but he was the offensive coordinator, so he was busy with that, right?
He was receivers, quarterbacks. No one ever pulled me to the side to show me anything. I was basically the receiver coach. After 2 years, it's like, okay, everybody came to me. I didn't have anyone to show. That's why with the training thing is I'm able to do it because I said, this one, I'm going to show you things I wish I'd have known, not just for college, but even when I went pro. No one just to break the stuff down. BYU had a system and a scheme. So they depended on the older guys to show you this. Well, I was redshirted my freshman year, and next thing I was in there playing, the following year, those guys that graduated with KO, Kaipo, Chad Lewis, James Dye, those guys on. So like, okay, Margin, let's go quickly. I never said the mindset mentality behind it all, and I said that's what some of the guys, the younger guys are lacking. You have high skills, but the mindset of it, they want right now. So sometimes you have to go through some stuff, to at least to prepare you for something greater.
It's crazy, Margin. So I played 10 years before you, and when you said red right 63, I could diagram the whole play out for you. I knew of like, hey, Margin was playing the X. He was supposed to run the free safety off. The free safety bit on the post cross or the dig, and he got behind the safety. I knew exactly. And so the tight end's going to run a center route, a down and in. You got the post cross or 18-yard dig on the flanker, and then you're running that clear out post. The H is running a delay angle, and the fullback's running a flat route. That's 63, right?
Yep, that's 63. Just basic as I'll get out.
Yes, it is.
Quarterback drops back. It's under center. He has a 5-step drop with a hitch. He looks at that safety. If that safety's sitting flat, throw it over his head.
Throw it over the head. And that's exactly. And the safety sat, and Margin ran right by him, and Kevin hit him with it, and it was money, and it was a touchdown. I remember.
It was money, and I never sat on the bench again.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
One other time he put me on the bench for a game. He told me I wasn't going to start. He kicked me out of practice. I wasn't going to start. So they called a formation I really wasn't in. They called like a tight formation that I wasn't in anyway. And then he went back to regular performance. So I didn't start the game. I just went in on the first play. So Norm and I used to, oh man, it was one of them things, man. It was just like.
So it's interesting because it sounds like you went through some stuff, had a great junior year with a stable quarterback, went through 3 quarterbacks your senior year. Yet you told us at the top, you know what though? I don't wear anybody else's colors because I'm BYU through and through. So what was it about your experience there that made you still love the Cougars and still send talent up this way and all of that after all of these years?
Man, I look at it, you know what? I'm going to tell you, LaVell was, man, he's one of was the ideal person for me. Some of the conversations he and I had, you know, just, we wouldn't even talk about football, just life in general. He always told me I was like the team lawyer. Because again, the year I went was the most African-American non-Mormons that we had ever recruited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't remember Ronnie Jenkins, Brian McKenzie, Will Snowden, Ronnie Jenkins, Omar Morgan, Larry Moore. I think there was a year before. Tim McTire came the year before. So it was different, you know. It was a little different, type of animal. So when I just getting there, you know, LaVell, it was like the one time he's kind of opened up the gates, like, okay, let's let these guys are different. No, they're not Mormon. Let's give them a chance. And just the things I learned from him and seeing how people, you know, I tell people, look, I was different, but I respected everyone. Everyone respected me. They respected my differences. You know, I tell them I took 16 hours of religion. I told people that I'm an honorary Mormon. They would laugh at me. I'm like,
if you take 16 hours, you are an honorary.
Hours, man. Yeah, I took everything. They're like, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, man, I take Doctrine and Covenants, everything, Pearl of Great Right, you name it, I was in there.
Yeah.
So Book of Mormon. So I told it was different, but it allowed me to expand. And I said to kind of be like an amoeba, kind of just adjust to our surroundings and kind of fit in, you know, like, okay, what do I have to do to not, you know, first I was thinking of survival. Then it got to the point where I was thriving. You know, it wasn't survival because it's like, okay, everybody's looking at me different. You know, I'm not from the mountains. I'm someone, I have a whole different perspective on life. You know, and one thing I learned when I was in classes, I was quiet. But when I spoke, everyone listened because it was so different from their thought process.
Yeah. And
it was respected. You know, a lot of professors would just trip. They would enjoy it because their mouth would drop like, what? You know, I remember, you know, just this situation, you know, in religion class or whatever it may be, psychology, you know, professors, sometimes they would want me to speak, you know, you speak and you say something. It's like some of the people, they don't think that way because of the way they were raised, the perspective, where they were taught. And I was like, well, I come from a different animal, you know. I was raised this way. I was taught this way. Yeah. This is how I see things, you know, as I see life in general. And I haven't changed. I still, you know, as a human, I think we all can get better. You know, we all can do better with just respecting each other, just the human race in general. You know, it's some things that's out there that need to be fixed. I don't never think it would be fixed on whatever side you're on. But at BYU, it allowed me to kind of see those things, and I was able to meander through life and graduated 4 years. So even now, if I can make it through BYU, I can make it through anything. You know, and I was an 18-year-old when I got there.
I love that whole mindset of mutual respect that you felt there, because isn't that what it's really all about? And the fact that LaVell was open-minded and said, hey, we need margin hooks here, because he brings a different perspective. And LaVell he was so far ahead of his time, wasn't he, Margin? With we want to bring people from all different walks of life, and we want them here, and we're going to mold them into a team. We're going to respect each other and learn from each other, and that's what made it special, right?
Man, if you look at that 96 team, look at it.
Yes.
Steve Sarkisian is not Mormon.
Right.
Kaipo McGuire is not Mormon. Brian McKenzie, when he showed up, had gold teeth.
Yep.
Who's not Mormon?
Omar and Tim.
You know, Omar and Tim. It was the whole, and we all got along.
Yeah.
You know, we all got along. Man, you got Shay Muirbrook. You have Brad Martin. Man, Chad and Atula and Mark out the wild like brothers to me, man. They took care of me as a league. I remember Mark Atawaya and Atula used to hustle me. They would come to Helaman Halls and they would do free throw competitions. And it was a certain rim, like a trick rim that they knew how to shoot on it. And I would lose every time. And they would pick me up. You got Jane, they would pick me up, take me out to eat. I was like the little brother And I was kind of a little wildfire, and they would just get me to do the crazy. I would say whatever. And I remember Mark Dr. Wide gave me the best advice. He said, Margin, the more you know, the more you're going to be on the field. The more you know, more position you know, they can't bench you. Yeah. That's why I say I played everywhere. I played the X, I played the Z, I played the Y, I played the F, I played the H. You name it, I could line up. And that's the advice that I had from guys like Mark. Then I had guys like Dennis Simmons, who's at USC now, who's, man, he and I would live like a big brother. Even after college, I've seen quite a few players that go home, and just those things. And let me be me. Let me be me. I mean, Lavelle would sit there and laugh sometimes. We'd be in the middle of a game. He would just say some of the craziest stuff. And people were like, Lavelle talk. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, he's hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, he can say some crazy. You look at him like, what did you say that?
Couldn't we all? We could all take a lesson, couldn't we, Margin? Because think about how many years ago that is. And I felt the same thing when I was there. I came from New York, and you felt that way in the 90s. And it's like, wait a minute. If in that microcosm of this football team, you got kids from every background you could imagine, from every different religion, different skin colors, but it didn't matter because they're all brothers, right? Everybody were brothers. And to this day, you feel that way. That's the way I feel. Man, the world needs to take a look. Why does that work? And our world's so messed up these days. The world needs to take a lesson from sports and figure it out, huh?
It is, man. This other night I was on the phone with Will Snowden and Hans Olsen for like an hour and a half, just laughing at stuff. Just laughing at things, man. I've been in bowl. I told someone else. I remember I was at a bowl game. We were in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, and we went out to a club, which was mostly, black club in the inner city. So we go. So I'm in there, and I'm like the new guy. No one knew who I was. So someone walked, tapped me on the shoulder. Who are you? So I'm like, these dudes surround me. Out of nowhere, I think it's like Hans Olsen, a couple of linemen. I think like Eric Bateman. They tap me on my shoulder, like, everything okay? And those guys look up and see, like, what in the world? These big old dudes, and they look at me like, oh, you're a football player. And it's like everything was clean. I'm sitting there like, and it's like, they're my brothers, like, Justin Enna. I've been in, I said, man, look, I've ate the Kahlua pig. I've done it all. You name it. I just make sure I don't sit on the rug when they passing the cowboy around. I got caught up in that stuff. I learned my lesson, just respect. So it was I said, man, it was a mess. I learned, so I would never change my decision to go to, from going to BYU. It does help when I go and people talk to me and I tell them where I went to school and they just stop and like, you went to BYU? You? They let you in? Why? I'm like, yes, it was one of the things, teasing Hans about doing devotion, doing devotion on Tuesday. We would walk around, he'll be quoting Tupac, walking through the library and stuff with me. And people look at it, and Matt Johnson, I would tell people he was my cousin. Matt Johnson played offensive guard for us.
Right. Yeah.
We were roommates. So people were like, what? I'm like, man, they were huge, big boys.
Yes.
But they're my brothers, and we still in contact. Matt Johnson's come here, text me, we're going out, he come watch me train, talk to Hans, all those guys. I still, Kiesel every now and then, I run and talk to him. Chris Hope, great dude, man. These are, just great people in general that I played with, and I have the most admiration and respect for.
Margin Hooks, just a couple more minutes with you, and we sure enjoy your time, and we know everyone's enjoying hearing from you. Before we get to 5 quick questions, you have 14 touchdowns at BYU. Which one was your favorite?
My favorite was Cal Berkeley, my junior year. I caught one over the shoulder in the corner end zone. It was actually my mom's birthday. Oh. And she asked me, what you want for your birthday? I'm thinking I'm going to get a cake candle or something like that. And we're playing Cal. They're like top 5 defense in the nation at Delta O'Neal, all those dudes. And she's like, I want a touchdown. I'm looking like, what? And then I score. And I remember scoring, running up in the tunnel, coming down. And I remember running and jumping over like the little sign on the side of the sideline and pointing up for us here. That was a special one right there. That's because awesome. Of what she asked for. That's one of my most memorable ones.
And it gets a great defense to boot. Awesome. For your mom. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, Mom, A B C T D. It's not little league anymore. I just go score. You might even throw the ball. So that was like one of my most memorable. And then the first one I caught, being that it was in Dallas, I was home, right. My family was around. Although I wish I'd have played more than just 4 minutes. But it was worth it. Like again, I had to go through that. But
the pass for some reason got you in the good graces of Norm, and then you played pretty much every down since. from that time
Oh
forward?
yeah, never take down out from the down. I mean, I never missed it down.
I love
it. I mean, it's so like I tell guys, yes, you're gonna go through stuff. Sometimes you just have to bite your tongue. Sometimes it gets ugly. I tell football is a barbaric sport. I say if you could have heard some of the phone calls with me and Norm or whoever in the press box. Oh man, I remember them going off on me, yelling at me, going in. And sometimes I pick up the phone and I go off on them. I mean, we'll lose a game, they look at you, blame everything on you, and I just turn around like, okay, you wait the 3rd and 20, then you want to throw me the ball, and they squatting at 20, and they blitzing, so I decided to so they can hit me. What idiot coach called that? So I mean, I threw it right back at them. I went right at them because again, when you cross that threshold and get in between those numbers and tell people, what do you mean numbers? Well, to be eligible in football for receiver, you have to go in between the numbers before you're eligible to play. I'm like, when you jog on that field, you take the chance of never walking again. You're going to be carried off on a stretcher. And I've seen that happen to guys.
Yeah.
So if I'm going out here, put my line, and you want to talk, if you wrong and I feel you wrong, I'm not going to be respectful. I'm going to dig into you because you can get me hurt out here.
Right.
So it's just going to be that. I've busted in an offensive meeting. And that's when that thing kind of changed with Norm. He realized the nice guy is changed. I said, now the other side of me coming out. Don't let the glasses smile.
Yeah, I'm sure he loved the competition. He loved the competition in you, didn't he?
Oh man, he would look at me sometimes and just laugh. But he knew if it came down to it, I was gonna make the play.
Yeah. Yep.
I was gonna, if he gave me an opportunity, I'll make the 3rd down play. I'm a block. And I told someone there was times I wish they'd threw in the ball. I said I wanted the bigger, but I didn't. My senior year, I felt that Brandon Doman should have started at the beginning of the year. I think we'd have had a much better season.
Right.
But I never said anything out of respect for the coach. I never wanted to just cross that threshold and let y'all do your job. And Coach Reynolds at the end of the season apologized to me. He actually came up to me and said, man, I think, I apologize because my draft status went bottom. I mean, I went from 1,100 yards my junior year to like 700 and something my senior year. Yeah. Playing with 3 different quarterbacks. We playing Florida State. We playing big time teams.
Yeah, that was a big time season. Big time schedule.
So, and I'm keep stepping and just, it was fumble. And I said, you learn from it.
Yep.
I said, you learn. I said, I learned, I learned that I can control my emotions. There's different things that can help you process through life, And there's things I tell people, I'm like, did I want the record? I wanted to crush the record. I did, but I never told anyone that because I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted, the team thing. So, there's
a lot for these young guys to learn from that statement right there. So
yeah, and it helped me keep the friendships I have now.
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Martin, we have 5 quick questions for you that we ask everybody, and
just fun, just with first thing that comes to your mind. These are just fun, so people get to know you a little bit.
Okay, all right.
First one is your favorite sports movie.
Remember the Titans.
Oh,
classic.
And I like when people side with me. That's mine. That's mine too, Martin. So
favorite singer or band.
Ooh, favorite singer or band. Man, I don't want to show my age. Probably.
You can show your age.
You can show your age.
We're all the same age.
Well, you have to think of it. It depends on who. Now, if you tell me this genre of music, I'm a Tupac fan.
Yeah.
Through and through.
Hey,
I'm a Tupac guy.
I was embarrassed because a couple weeks ago I asked Dave his favorite Tupac song, and he didn't know any Tupac song. I'm like, you don't even know California? Like, come on.
Man, California Love. I'll tell you, Hans and I was like a comedy show, and we had English. I said we had English together. He's from Idaho. I'm from Waco, Texas. And our teacher was an Asian lady. And we would get put out of class like in high school. He would just say crazy stuff, and she would like, put us out of class, and it'd be his fault. I'm like, man. And he would wrote a story about the first time he saw a black guy at a fair. And I'm sitting there looking at him like, I'm swearing a punch in his face. But I mean, we laughed the other night about that. He was like, I forgot about all that stuff. Yeah.
The good
put out of class like we're kids.
The good news is that when I said, you don't know I said, California knows how to party. And then Dave's like, oh, yeah, I know that song. I'm like, okay, at least he knows it. Like he just didn't know the name. So,
all right, favorite breakfast cereal?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Oh, you know what? That's a really popular one. Where a lot of people like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I think was that Brandon Doman's too?
It could have been.
Yeah, I think so. Favorite place to get a hamburger?
Ooh, man. You know what? I'm gonna do this because this is all I used to eat. Burger King. They used to have the 99 cents Whoppers that ran
Oh,
right down
yeah,
right from the school.
That's old school.
I got to
right
admit,
there.
when they had double beef Whopper with cheese on the special, I would get it too.
It was like 90. I would go get it, and I couldn't afford the cheese, so I would go to Smith's and buy cheese, and I couldn't get the good kind. It was the cheap kind that wouldn't melt.
Somebody
just slide off.
Somebody needed to give Margin an NIL deal.
Wait a second.
Right now.
So let me get this straight. You went to Burger King and bought a hamburger. Then you went to Smith's to buy the cheese to put on the hamburger.
Yeah, because the hamburgers cost 99 cents. If you got cheese, it went up to almost $2.
Yeah,
so I
the special was just for the plain Whopper.
$1 on some cheese. Yeah, so I could just keep the cheese for the other Whoppers I get.
Yeah,
but the Smith's cheese wouldn't melt.
No, but he wouldn't like.
It was a cheap kind. I couldn't.
He had Smith's cheese in his fridge. He had it in his fridge. Yeah. Take it home.
It wouldn't melt. It was like it wasn't good. If you melt, it was like pasteurized. It was
exactly.
That's a sad story.
That's awesome.
By the way,
college life.
Burger King, you're the first Burger King vote since we went on the air.
I'm going to side with because
nice
I completely forgot about the 99-cent Whopper days because we would do that. Robbie Bosco and I would do that for sure.
Man, Marissa Cosgrave, who she was on the gymnastics team, she and I would go. I remember my birthday we would go, and she would give me a crown to put on my head, and I'd wear it the whole week on campus.
All right.
Okay, last one. Your favorite BYU memory.
Oh, man. Probably, oh, man, I have so many of them. You know, it's football-wise, school-wise is probably my last final that I did. I majored broadcast journalism.
Yeah.
And I did ad-lib outside in the snow. And it was my last show that I did. And I remember getting done and realizing I was going to get a degree from BYU. And that was the one thing I prided myself on because I was so different. And people don't realize that some people that thought I wasn't going to make it through because I was different. And that was that thing right there. I remember doing a snow angel in the middle of the snow on campus, realizing there's something that you can't take from me. People know me for football, but I love saying that I'm a graduate from Brigham Young University. No, I didn't attend. I'm a graduate. So that was like a big moment for me, just taking that last final and realizing I have my degree. Football-wise, there was so many of them that I had, you know, it's so many of them. And some big games I played in, had an opportunity, you know, sharing the field. But, you know, some of the moments, like I said, the touchdown for my mom and then the touchdown at the beginning of my season. I guess it's fine that I wore number 14 and I scored 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, and your jersey's retired. That's awesome.
And you want to know what?
My jersey's retired.
I absolutely respect and love that your favorite memory is not a football memory, that it's getting your degree. That's awesome. Yeah. That's flat out awesome.
Yeah, so it's getting my degree, man, and it helps me even now with the training business that I do with all the guys I train and work with. People ask me about that. Well, how did it be about you, you know? And I explain to them. Just those experiences help me with working with those guys, is understanding what they're going through mentally and kind of coaching them through it while they're in school. You know, so it helps out a lot, and then a lot of things I take from, like I said, Lavelle and his approach to everything. You know, he, like I said, someone is with the status of him, and I will watch him before games go sign autographs and shake people's hands. Well, a lot of coaches don't even do that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a big game. I'll see Lavelle going to shake everyone's hand around the stadium, you know, before the game. And I'm sitting there like, dude, this man is different. I mean, most guys are just stuck up there and they're amped up. You know, they want to talk to him, want to yell at one. Lavelle had the same tone always. You know, that's one thing that's kind of seeing that. It kind of helped me mold me to who I am now, just trying to be even keel always. You know, never get too high, never get too low.
Yeah.
You know, so it keeps that roller coaster life that we all have kind of somewhat easy.
Lots of responses from our streamers on your.
Yeah, they loved your. It maybe, you know what? That's probably my favorite of the favorite BYU memories that anybody's given us is that one that you finish your degree. I love that.
One of them said chills on that answer. Awesome. That's awesome. I'm just trying to visualize you doing a snow angel in the middle of campus. I think
that's on a leather jacket, all black. In the middle of the camp, it was cold. Snow was in December of my senior year. Because I graduated. I kind of spread my classes out so I could still play that last season.
Yeah.
Because I contemplated leaving my junior year. I didn't come back to school till late. I was literally, that's a whole nother story. I was literally probably just going to leave. And my mom talked to me about it. And I was like, I can always get my degree. You know, I had a great season. It was kind of rough towards the end, but all in all, I'm glad I stayed. Glad I got my degree. Got to experience, you know, the things I did with Lavelle's last year. Because I can at least say I'm one of Lavelle's last guys, you know. And now that I'm older and kind of looking back, you know, people are like, well, you're the top. I'm like, well, this is one of the 5 greatest. I mean, I didn't say it. They think I am. I think I'm just a normal dude. You know, when I look at all these guys now, and it's like, you know, it's some things to be proud of. And my man cave now, this is one of the things I show people a lot. You probably can't see it, but this right here is my degree from BYU.
There you go. You've got your blur background on, but we can tell that that's your degree.
And man, I don't even know how to work that stuff. I'm so technical. I'm not.
Yeah, you've got your blur the background on, but we can tell that that's your degree, and we saw your jersey. Yep, and that's.
So I have a whole corner.
You know what, Margin? You inspired a lot of people when you were here. You're still inspiring them today. It's awesome. We appreciate it.
You're not a normal dude. You know that. You're not a normal dude.
I appreciate
and we say that in the.
I have a great show.
We say that in the best terms. When you're not normal, we're talking about you're not normal, and that's great. So.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for taking the time with us tonight, Margin, and all the folks out there around the world listen to us. Thank you too for the great example you are.
Thank you. And when you talk to Austin Collie, tell him I said hello.
We're going to talk to him in just a little bit here. We'll tell him you said hey.
Hey, tell him I started my training business because I saw what his dad was doing.
Is that right? Fantastic.
We'll let him know.
True story.
We'll let him know. So,
hey, awesome. We hope to have you on again. Thanks, Margin.
Thanks so much, Margin.
Definitely. Okay.
Margin Hooks live from Dallas, Texas, right there in his man cave, and right there
with his BYU jersey
BYU
and the frame
jersey
and
his degree
from BYU. How cool is that? Yeah, seriously, that may be one of my favorite BYU memories for Margin. That the project that finished off his degree and got him his degree. That's cool. That's really cool. More than
doing a snow angel
and
on
all
campus.
Of the great moments he had on the football field. That's the thing that came to his mind when we asked him to answer that quickly. That tells you all you need to know. Pretty cool.
That was one of our best interviews. Austin Collie is going to join us here in about 10 minutes. Between now and then, let's get you updated on some of the news around campus. And, of course, it all focuses around Saturday night. Wyoming Cowboys are here. 79th meeting. It's a 10:15 Eastern, 8:15 Mountain kick on ESPN2. BYU's won 8 straight in the series. First time Wyoming's played here in Provo since 2010. But a lot of history in this rivalry.
Oh, yeah. So, and who can forget the first night game at War Memorial Stadium? They brought in portable lights for this game back in 1988. And ESPN brought the lights in.
But there was something unique about that game.
Yeah, Ty Detmer made his debut in that game. And he replaced Sean Covey, who was injured. He threw 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys won 24-14.
He threw 4 all in the second half, and they only lost by 10.
So Ty was 9 of 26. 4 interceptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown. And how many people were going, this kid's never going to be any good?
Most.
Right.
Most were like going, because they weren't terribly happy with how Covey was playing. Then he got hurt. And then he comes Detmer, and he was such a breath of fresh air that there was like, hey, there's something about him. But the 4 picks were like.
But the production on that night wasn't great. And
it worked out for him.
And all he ended up doing was turning into Ty Detmer. Yeah. Right? He turned into Ty Detmer after that. And that's all you need to say. Pretty amazing. So
first WAC championship game in Vegas. BYU beat Wyoming 28-25 in overtime in 1996. Cougars went on to win the Cotton Bowl, finished 14-1.
And I'm telling you,
that place was packed.
Wyoming was really good that year. They were throwing it all over the place, and what a great game that 28-25 overtime Vegas game was in 96. That was a great one.
So that's Saturday night. BYU Sports Nation game day starts at 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain on BYU TV. We'll be live out in the crowd at Cougar Canyon at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Dennis Pitta is going to join the show.
Which I'm so glad, because they won't let him on Sports Nation.
Yeah, well, he's coming on this one. And who knows? Who knows by the weekend? Maybe they'll announce he's going into the BYU Hall of Fame. We know it's coming. It's either going to be this year or next year.
And then you've got you in that show, you have a sit-down
with Clark Barrington.
Yeah,
which is 6'5", 303. Awesome. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk about how to get the ground game going. I also asked him who could eat more hamburgers in a single setting, him or his younger brother Campbell, who plays on the right side of the line when he gets in. You'll be fascinated to hear that answer.
Yep.
And that's coming up Saturday night. Going to be great football weather.
Yeah, it's clear skies, 70s on Saturday, which is what we love, especially when we're doing the pregame. We don't want to be sweating out there in the sun. We want it to be in the 70s.
And the Cougs are coming out navy tops, navy bottoms with the white helmets and the white trim. Some people don't like the navy. I love the navy. I love all their colors, but navy just pops under the lines.
The white helmets look cool, too.
Yeah, and those are cool.
With the navy trim, so I'm liking that. At BYU in Vegas, by the way, opened as a 23.5-point favorite.
Is that too high?
You know what? Here's why I think not. I think they're going to come out and play angry. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulders to start this game. And I think they're going to want to make a statement. So maybe it's not too much.
Timing might not be the best for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They're 3-1. They played 3 straight home games. They got beat by Illinois in the opener 38-6 back in August.
Yeah.
Then they beat Tulsa 40-37 in double overtime. Northern Colorado 33-10, and then last Friday night they beat Air Force, which I thought was a pretty good game.
And I think Coach Bowl, he can look at this team and say, man, they're improving every week. Now they haven't played the talent they played in week 1. Illinois got talent all over the field. It's a Big Ten team, and they really struggled to move the football against Illinois. They had 212 yards of total offense in that game, but if you watch, they've absolutely progressed. That's a big win against Air Force. Air Force, solid team that can run the football. The Cowboys did a great job shutting him down and got a great win. So I think they're getting better every week. I think BYU should have a huge advantage up front, and I think they're going to play angry, and I think that makes a big difference.
The Southeastern Conference tonight rolled out their 2023 football schedule, which includes BYU at Arkansas, third week of the season.
Mm-hmm.
The Big 12 is going to roll out theirs, they said, in October. And I was looking at the calendar, and I was seeing that the SEC is announcing theirs. And I'm thinking, well, that's 11 days away. Yeah. That's 11 days away. So then anytime after October 1, the Big 12 will announce BYU's first conference schedule. And I'm thinking, that's going to be a really cool moment.
And you asked the commissioner when he was on with us on game day 2 weeks ago for the Baylor game, if BYU fans were going to be happy. And he said, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be some great teams that are going to come in.
Because we asked him for a hint, and he said he didn't give us a teaser.
And he knew we were asking before they leave the league if we're going to get Texas or Oklahoma in Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and he seemed to indicate that might happen.
He said, I will tell you this. They will be national events.
Yes.
And I will be here for them.
Go.
And so
Pretty
he's
fun.
not coming for Kansas.
No,
we know that.
No.
So anyway, 11 days away, we're going to –
it's going to be really fun.
We might get this
to be able
thing.
to kind of lay that out and see who's going to come in.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
The day that happens, even if it's not a Tuesday, we should just come on the air here and just talk about it.
Maybe we'll do it. We'll just do a live stream. So, hey, volleyball, WCC play begins on Thursday night this week against LMU, 7 Mountain on BYU TV. 22nd ranked Pepperdine will be at number 17 BYU on Saturday at 1 p.m. also on BYU TV. So a couple of games on BYU TV this week for BYU women's volleyball.
Soccer starts its title defense in the WCC on Saturday, October 1st at St. Mary's. The next home game is Wednesday, October 5th against San Francisco. Now, BYU is coming off an emotional 2-1 win over Utah in front of a full house Saturday night at Southfield. Jerem Jordan was on the call, and he told me it was already crowded, and then the volleyball game got done. They were an hour ahead. Mm-hmm. So then all the volleyball fans came out to Southfield. Now it's totally packed. It's scoreless. Olivia Wade kicks a goal in the 78th minute to give BYU a 1-0 lead. Utah answers in the 87th minute to tie the game. Now there's only 90 minutes. And then Wade scored again in the final minute to win it 2-1.
Yeah, what a dramatic win.
That's awesome.
And this is a talented team that's finding itself. And they were ranked. They kind of dropped out. I will not be surprised to see them play themselves back into the national rankings and go on a run. Just a lot of firepower to replace from last year. People need to understand their roles, but there's a ton of talent on this soccer team, and they can compete with anybody. How about women's golf? BYU's ranked number 41. Just finished 12th at the Mercedes-Benz Collegiate Championships, which ended today. Cougars were the defending champs in that one.
Women's basketball, Amber Whiting, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, they rolled out their first schedule, her first as the head coach. And here are a couple of notables. October 27th, Westminster, that's an exhibition game. That's the first time we'll see what she's got. And then they open the regular season November 8th at Colorado State. That's the game that replaced the South Carolina game after their coach did her thing and decided that it wasn't safe to play BYU, which is total
She'll go to Memphis and play, though. Yeah. Don't worry about that.
November 12th, Montana State. That's the home opener. BYU's won 30 straight at the Marriott Center. And I was on Sports Nation the other day, and Amber was there, and I said, hey, well, the good news is it's only 30. No pressure.
Yeah.
30-game home court winning streak.
And then how about on November 15th, BYU plays Oklahoma. That'll be a little bit of a Big 12 preview.
There'll be a big crowd there.
And Utah on December 10th. And then December 17th, perennial WCC Power at Gonzaga in the WCC opener. So quite a schedule. Love that they've got Oklahoma and Utah on that schedule.
Our guest next week, Andrew Rich, will join us, talk BYU defense. And Riley Nelson, quarterback for Utah State, finished as quarterback for BYU, works on the BYU radio broadcast. He's going to join us. It's Utah State week, so we got to have Riley here.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're looking forward to that. October 4th, artist Rob Jensen and basketball and entrepreneur Travis Hansen. We'll also check in with the alumni head down in Las Vegas as BYU prepares to go down there and play Notre Dame. And Curtis Brown and Devin Durant will join us on October 11th. Just a sneak peek into what we got ahead.
You mentioned artist Rob Jensen, right?
Yeah.
And people, we've had one of the great saxophone players in the world on here. We've had Marie Osmond. So once in a while we get people with BYU ties that take us into other realms, which is really, really cool. And he's developed this Draw with Your Kids program where he draws with the kids. It's like a global phenomenon. He's going to come on and talk some art with us and kids and his ties to BYU and all that. That's really cool. We're excited
totally
to have him
into
on. Yep.
Our next guest caught 106 passes for 1,538 yards and 15 touchdowns, and that was just in 2008.
Yes, it was.
It was also the best season by a receiver in program history. During his 3 years on the field in Provo, he redefined the position, went on to play in the Super Bowl. It is our pleasure to welcome Austin Collie to the Wise Guys. Austin, you were just endorsed by Margin Hooks as an all-around great guy, so welcome to the show.
Well, Margin, back to Margin. Margin's a phenomenal guy. And I will say, Andrew Rich is going to have a hard act to follow after this 20 minutes, fellas.
Well, Margin said, first of all, tell Austin I said, hey. He said, I love Austin. And he goes, and tell Austin that this whole thing that I'm doing with training receivers and all that, he said, I came up with that idea because of Austin's dad. And so, Scott, your dad, my old teammate, Scott, who I love, Austin's family and my family go back a long, long ways. Scott and I played together, and he was one of my favorite teammates. And then he was married to Nikki, and we named our daughter Nicole after Nicole Collie, thinking that her nickname would be Nikki, but you can't give a nickname, and everybody started to call her Collie, and we're like, no, she's supposed to be Nikki, like Nikki Collie. But
nicknames just happen.
And then our kids are all intertwined. Like Austin's good friends with Kellen, and it's just our families go back a long way. I love the Collie family. They're one of the best families on earth, and we're really excited to have. I'm so glad Austin would come on with us because I have so much respect for his family. So.
That's the Cougar lineage right there at its finest, the Cougar heritage right there, man.
Yep, it sure is.
Austin, let's go to the Super Bowl in 2010. You had 6 catches for 66 yards, including a 40-yarder from Peyton Manning in a 31-17 defeat to New Orleans. What was it like to make that first catch in the Super Bowl, which is something that you dreamed about from Pop Warner, and then you were there and you were making plays? What's that feeling like?
It's something. I'll tell you. It's definitely one of those things. I mean, that whole year I was having a hard time really taking a step back and comprehending what was going on, right? What situation I was in. I mean, I was catching passes from Peyton. I was, rubbing shoulders with guys like Reggie Wayne and Jeff Saturday, right? Dallas Clark, right? So the fact that I was there, and not only was I there, I was in the huddle, and I was catching passes throughout the season. I was already having a tough time kind of taking that all in, let alone going to the Super Bowl, right? And I think, Dennis Pitt always loves to give me, he loves to rouse me about the fact that he's a winner and I'm a loser, right?
But you know what? Dennis was on with us a couple weeks ago, and I think he
may have said that.
He did say something about when you get Austin on, remind him that I did win the Super Bowl. That's what.
Yeah, he loves reminding me of that. And if you want to know what's so funny is we have a tradition for every Super Bowl, the Pit has come and stay with us to hang out for like a week, and we end up watching the Super Bowl together, right? As a family or as a couple families. And I'll tell you what, man, it has not gotten any easier. If anything, it's gotten harder to watch the Super Bowl for me, right? Because at that time, I didn't fully comprehend what it meant. I mean, obviously it's the Super Bowl, right? But when you lose, you lose and you go into the locker room and that's it. And I got to see the other side of things when you actually do win and what happens, because I was there for Dennis's and we got to hang out with him after and go to the after parties and stuff like that. And, every time I see the post-game production and all that jazz and then see some of these guys that have won it, a few years later, man, it is just always just a dagger to my heart, right? And that pain only gets worse with each Super Bowl, right?
Wow.
See, that's the competition
a hard life
in our
right
guy
there.
right here. That's the competition. This is like, people ask about games, and the ones that you lose, you remember all the plays that you didn't make. Of course, we do remember the plays we did make in wins.
Right.
In
And
wins
sometimes
as well,
those
right?
plays,
Right.
sometimes those plays get a little bigger.
Right?
Yeah, no, it kills me. And a funny story about that is after the season finished up, we still got like an AFC championship ring, and they made it a little bit extra special because that year the NFL named, the Colts the most winningest organization in that decade. So they made it, and which I had nothing to do with, right? But they made the ring a little bit extra over the top, and they present it nice in your locker with this custom box with your name on it. And I remember opening it and looking at it, being like, "Oh my hell! Like this thing's nice. Like this isn't a bull ring, right? Like this is it's probably the equivalent of any Super Bowl ring that had come before that." And I felt a hand come onto my shoulder and a voice say, "If I ever see you wearing that, it'll be the last thing that you do." Right. And it was, sure enough, it was Peyton. Right. And of course he was saying that because, losers don't wear these rings. Right.
Yeah.
It's not a Super Bowl ring. You want to wear the Super Bowl ring. I don't want you seeing the second place ring. Right?
Wow.
That's good advice.
So, hey, you played with Max Hall, who's a great competitor, all-time winningest quarterback in BYU history. And since you were the receiver, you're probably the all-time winningest receiver in BYU history. Nobody ever talks about that. Played with Peyton Manning. You also played with Tom Brady, right? So,
yeah.
Whose personality was the toughest to deal with?
Off the field or on the field?
Either.
Yeah. You choose.
I don't know, man. Like I have always made an effort to make the quarterback my best friend. I found out early that was probably a smart business decision, right? Make sure you befriend the quarterback.
Absolutely.
And thankfully, all the guys that I've played with have we have found that kind of common ground as far as what we want to do, and that was to win ball games. And every single one of the quarterbacks I had unbelievable amount of work ethic, right, which I admired and which I try to kind of match. All three of those guys are very different and unique in their own way, but they're all some of the greatest competitors that I've played with, right? That were not afraid to put in the time and put in the reps, right, to continue to get better. And that's ultimately what they all wanted to do, is kind of see how, what their ceiling was, and weren't afraid to put the work in to do it, right?
So who of the three was the most competitive? We know Max, and he's got to be up there. But of those three, and two of those are elite NFL guys, and one's an elite BYU guy, who was the most competitive?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that's more competitive than Peyton is.
Really?
Yeah. Like he's he had every excuse, and Tom's up there as well, right? I'm a bit biased, right, because Peyton's my guy, but I thought I worked hard. I thought I prepared hard, right, when I was at BYU, and it was, it paled in comparison to what Peyton and the time that he would put in and the time that Tom would put in, right? Like it is night and day, nonstop, and really that's why. I felt like I hit a different level when I got to the league, and it was really all thanks to him, just because of the standard that he held for his teammates and the standard that he held for me, right? Like I remember the first day coming in, we had the first day of install, and I was already with the ones, right? That was the reason why they drafted me, was to fill the role of Brandon Stokely and to be the slot guy. So I was already with the ones, and I think we had installed like 15 plays that day, 15 new plays, right, with like 3 different formations. And you head out to the field as a rookie thinking to yourself like, oh, if I screw up, everyone's going to understand because I just learned these and had to learn them within like an hour and a half, right, of classroom work. No one's going to get mad at me. And And I remember running the wrong route, and Peyton got after me, and I'm like, well, first off, it's nice to meet you, right? Second off, all right, man, like I'll get to it, right? Like, and from that point on, I knew what was expected, what was going to be expected of me. I mean, most of these guys in the huddle was the same group. It was the same group that won the Super Bowl in 2006, right? I think me and Pierre Garçon were the only missing, or the only pieces of the puzzle that were different.
Wow.
From an offensive standpoint. And so it was, I mean, it was kind of a high pressured situation. And, thankfully I had the support system around me to constantly be studying, right? Like I remember grabbing Brooke, my wife, and she got to know the playbook as well as, or as much as I did, just because she'd be constantly quizzing me in the family room, right? Going over every single play, just because I didn't want to be that guy, right? Since I was the only different part of that offense.
Sure.
Any decline in performance, obviously they'd be looking at me saying, you need to get your act together, right? Because this isn't how we roll.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. And we wonder how teams win championships. That's how they win championships.
Yeah, that kind of expectation, right? You got to expect to win. And expect everybody to put the work in to win, right?
Absolutely. Like I remember times on film, man, I would he would have put a ball maybe a little bit away from me, and it may have gotten my fingertip as I stretched for it, right? Typically, in a college environment, it's like, oh, that would have been a nice catch had you pulled that in. No, you get to his level, it's like you should have had that. If it's in your radius, man, if one hand or not, that's got to be pulled in, right? And that type of mentality, I kind of had to like switch my mindset real quick on what the standard was going to be. And naturally, that just gets you to a place that you've never been before.
Yeah, that's pretty. Were any with those three guys? Now take them off the field. Who was the most fun to just hang with? Who was the nicest of those three off the field?
Well, Max was my guy, right? Like Max, and Dennis and Harv, and that was a unique, very special and unique time. As I'm sure you can say, Blaine, right? I mean, the friendships that you develop there on the team and in high school, man, those are irreplaceable, right? And the time was so much fun, right? You had no worry in the world. You're living, stipend check to stipend check, and some of the stuff that we would go do would be always together, and had so much fun during those times. That's why it was really difficult for me to leave early and leave that behind.
Austin Collie's on the Wise Guys tonight. 3,255 receiving yards in 3 seasons.
Yeah, you gave us one season of 1538, which is just borderline ridiculous in college. But Austin, you appreciate were talking about Max and what a good friend. We had Max on with us just a few weeks ago as well. I asked him to verify the story that when he was a sophomore, you guys were in a game where it just kind of went back and forth. Offense scored, defense gave a score up. Then offense scored, defense gave a score up. Offense scored, and he walked by Bronco and said, "Hey, do you think the defense might get a stop sometime tonight?" And Bronco told that story, and Bronco said he thought, he said, I started to step toward him like, well, you little, and then he thought, no, I actually think I like that out of my quarterback. And he backed off and didn't say anything to him. And he had no idea that what Max was going to turn into. But that was kind of the fire Max had on the field. Like, he just felt like, man, we're doing our part. How about the defense stepping it up? I asked Max, did that happen? He goes, I'm not going to confirm or deny, but that might have happened, is what he said. Can you see Max doing that on the field?
Oh, that type of stuff happened all the time. I'm not gonna lie. From an offensive standpoint, man, our confidence level was through the roof, right? Like, we felt we could play with anybody at any time, and we were putting up the numbers that kind of back that up, right? And we really had a very, very unique group where all we wanted to do was win. We were hungry to win. We put in the work to win, and I'm sure Kellen could tell you stories back then that were like, those offensive guys, man, we would love nothing more than to just cold cock all of them, right? But we definitely had a different level of swagger and moxie to us back then. So I don't doubt that Max said that.
Yeah, that sounds so much like Max.
There's a small number really of elite receivers, a small group of you guys, and Margin's right there, and you and let's talk about Puka Nacua. We're expecting to see him on the field Saturday night against Wyoming. He wants to go to the show where you've been. Does Puka have what it takes to get to the NFL?
I think so. I think he definitely has that explosive play capability, right? That BYU typically doesn't or hasn't had for quite a while. More, I think back to the past, 5 years, it's kind of been role playing type of efforts other than Dax, right? But then Dax was only kind of a 1 year type of deal, had an explosive year with Zach, right? But, I like him a lot. I think, like I said, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a big body, right? I think he's got the perfect metrics to go on to the next level. As far as route running, I haven't been able to, in order for me to kind of really evaluate a receiver, I got to see the tape, right? Yeah. And I can't see the television type stuff, right? I got to see the real tape, the aerial view, and I got to see the angles that they're taking and how well they're coming in and out of their breaks and what the separation looks like, which, the TV footage really doesn't capture. So, but from what I've seen just on TV, man, he's, I think he's a special talent, right? There's a reason why he went Pac-10 right out of high school and had a tremendous amount of offers. And I was surprised at how big he was.
Really?
Yeah, the measurables, right, Austin? Like he's 6'2", he's like between 205 and 210. He's got all the speed in the world. He's got a 40-plus inch vertical jump. So all of those things jump off the page. Those all add up to NFL. But it's way more than just that, right, to be able to make it at that level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, I would lie. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say some of it came down to luck, right? And the further down the draft board you go and the further rounds you go into, more of that luck needs to transpire, right? You're going to need more of that. From situational standpoint, what offense you're in, what quarterback you're in, what you're able to do outside of the position, right? I think plays a huge part in it, especially if you go down to those lower rounds. So, honestly, whatever you can do when you get to that level, you got to showcase, right? I think I remember the first 4 OTA practices we had. Like, I had never done punt. I was never on the punt return team other than being a punt returner, and they actually had me out
on the gunner.
No, not out on the gunner, but on the D line, but a wing, right?
Oh, yeah.
rushing the punt, right? And I remember in practice, it was a live practice, and I think I got 3 in a practice, and I'd never done it before. And that's probably what helped me so much, is that I'm new position, never been taught, and I'm just kind of freelancing out there, just willy nilly, and was able to block 3 of them. And so, sure enough, they put me on the punt block team, and that lasted for maybe 2 games because I came back to our offense coordinator and said, "You've got to pull me off of this because every time we get the ball, we're going this lightning type of pace."
Yeah.
Right. We call it lightning package, where it's hurry up. It's like a 2-minute type of package that Peyton every once in a while would get into. So I would rush the punt and then have to go back down and cover and block and then turn around when you go into that lightning 2-minute. Right. And it absolutely killed me. It totally affected my performance. But without a doubt, it helped show the other coaches okay, this kid is capable of more than just catching balls, right? Like, this kid's a football player. We can put him in different spots if we need to. If it came down to it, maybe it didn't work out at the receiving end of it, but as far as special teams and some other ways he can get involved into the offense or special teams, at least gives us that option, at least gives them that option, right? You just prove your worth as a football player, right?
So what I'm hearing is that you were the precursor. Before Taysom Hill was Taysom Hill, there was Austin Collie, who was Austin Collie.
No,
That's what it sounds like.
No, not even a fraction. I don't think I've ever seen a better football player as a whole than Taysom. Taysom is probably one of the most premier football players I've ever seen.
He's a freak among freaks, isn't he? Like, that's people don't understand, because the NFL is a collection of freaks, but he's a freak with the freaks, which is hard to be, right?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, to play those different positions, man, that's crazy, right? To play a variety of different positions all in one season and to produce at those positions, right? Like, you're an all-around unbelievable football player, right?
People that big and strong aren't supposed to be that fast. They just don't make it like that. That combination doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No.
So
hey, let's talk about a couple of moments that you had at BYU. You had so many, but the infamous 4th and 18 play that Max had talked about against the Utes in 2007. Harvey scores a few plays later, and you guys win the game. But you're sitting there waiting for that ball to come to you, and you find yourself behind the Utah defense. Can you still picture the wait for Max to have delivered the ball? He said he had a hurt shoulder. He gave it all he had.
He was like, hey, he's lucky I got it out there.
And you had to wait for it.
Yeah, no. So I remember him signaling like a double move. It was like, I think, a stutter and go. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that is the dumbest call in the history of sports, right? Like, these guys shouldn't be biting on anything. They're going to sit at the sticks, right? Keep everything in front of them. So just by giving a double move, if this guy bites, that's going to be the worst error, right? That kid's probably made his entire career. And sure enough, he did bite, right? Which is crazy, right? Double move on 4th and 18.
And do you see him bite? Do you see him make that bite, and all of a sudden you're going, whoa?
Oh, yeah.
Are you thinking, what in the world? Like, what is he doing?
And I kind of gave that double move kind of a half-ass effort too, because I'm like, no way this is going down, right? No way this is happening. And sure enough, out of the corner of my eye, I see him driving on the ball. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I go, I get around him, and then that ball was hanging up there for quite a while. So, but it was, at the time you're just like, all right, another routine play, let's go, right? But you look back at that, you're just like, man, that was a big moment. That was a colossal error on whoever the corner was at that point, and we were just lucky to kind of get away with it.
Austin, Harvey told us, like, how when Harvey scored, he kind of ran over the dude, and then he looked back at him. Harvey's like, what? He goes, I'm going to give you the rest of the story. He goes, I don't know why I was so mad, but I turned around to throw the ball at him. And he says, but Sete he came and ran at me so fast, I ended up throwing the ball into Sete and it bounced off. He goes, nobody knows that Sete kept us from getting a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
He's like, the little story behind the story. He goes, I don't know why I was so angry and so on edge, but I was going to throw the ball at the guy that I just ran over.
Yeah, I would have killed Harvey if that happened.
Now, last spring at the alumni game, Brian Keel makes this Hail Mary catch. It's on BYU TV, and he goes right to our reporter on the field, and you know his quote. He says, when you're living right on and off the field, magic happens. And now there's no way he knew he was going to catch that ball, but he already knew what he was going to say if he was celebrating on such a
Brian
thing.
Keel has been imagining that moment, right? Even though he's a defender, he's been imagining that moment for quite some time. I can assure you that.
He said it was his greatest play in BYU history. I was like, what?
Yeah, that moment. There's been some nights where it's probably kept him up, just imagining, the cold sweats, right? Just getting his heart rate up, going over that play several times, and the fact that it finally came true and that he was able to kind of have a little bit of a little piece of that offensive joy did my heart good.
We asked Max, who was on here with us a little while ago. We asked Max, we had Max list his 5 greatest plays at BYU, and we asked him if this one was one of them, and he goes, no, but I can tell you this, it was Brian Keel's greatest moment.
He said it didn't have anything to do with any of mine, but it was definitely Brian's. So didn't you join that? Did you join that crew, that whole crew down in SoCal on that golf trip a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
Yep.
Did you go down? Then Keel went with you, and Kellen went with you. And who won that whole thing down there?
I think Keel has a tally. Keel's always the one keeping the tally, and he'll have that tally for time and all eternity. But he played pretty dang well. But yeah, it was me. It was Dennis. It was Bryce Moika, Kellen, and BK, and Brian played exceptionally well.
He played well. That's
very,
good.
very well.
That's good.
You want who else played really well? I was shocked. I've never golfed with Kellen before, but he can swing him. Kellen can swing him.
He's so stinking busy with work that he never plays. I'm like, dude, you have a good swing. You could, like, if you played once in a while, you might be really good. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I got to tell you, so It's been fun for me. Your dad and I, when we were together, and now I know where you got he was always really good friends with Jimmy Mackin, because I realized that you learned to get to know the quarterback well from Scott, which is great. Your dad was unbelievable technician and had the softest hands of anybody I've ever thrown it to. I love throwing it to Scott. But it was a thrill for us. Like, so you and Zach and Dylan, the coolest thing for a dad is when we've run out of that tunnel and we've experienced that and been out on that field, to have you guys, and for him to have all three of you, and I was always rooting for you and Zach and Dylan hey, I was just pumped for you guys the first time to run out of that tunnel.
Yeah.
Then I had Kellen and Landon and Gavin all get to do it. I don't know if any two dads that played together had three of their sons get to have that same experience, but that was really cool for your dad and I to have three boys all get to wear the blue and white. And what was that like for you to have three brothers, and for your dad as a family to have that? I know it was like for the Fowler family, but it had to be really cool for the Collie family.
Oh, it's way cool, right? As a dad, as me as a dad now, right? Like the fact that I would love to see my boys play D1 football. Right. I would, that would definitely be a dream come true. Right. Or any D1 college sport. Right. Cause the memories and the experiences that come along with it, right, that are irreplaceable. Right. It's not necessarily about playing the sport at that level, but it's about what comes with it. Right. And I'm biased. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you, every day I wish I was still playing football, right? Everyone asks, do you miss it? I say, hell yeah, I do. And anybody who tells you they don't is lying to you, right? Wow. Because it is, just some of the best times that you can have, right? And I only want that for my kids. And the fact that my dad got to see us all kind of partake in that same thing, and that, it gave us a platform to really relate to one another and tie some of those fatherly teachings back to football and back to those experiences. Like that's stuff that, like I said, not many people get to do and are irreplaceable.
It's pretty special. Hey, and the fact that you're just off with your boys, like with the guys, the fact that you're just down golfing with your buddies, that whole group that you just mentioned, all teammates getting together, it's a brotherhood that just goes on forever. You never lose that. And is it the same in the NFL, or is it just not quite the same as it is in college?
So it's funny you say that, because me and some of the Colts, some of the old Colts teammates, myself and Jeff Saturday and Peyton and Jacob Tammy and Anthony Gonzalez and Brandon Stokely, right? We're all on we all started for the first time. I think it's our first time ever playing fantasy football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we all kind of have a league going. And again, when I first got to Indianapolis, the camaraderie within the locker room was off the charts, similar to BYU, right? And I want to say the values that existed within each one of those guys within that locker room was very similar to BYU, right? As close as you could get in the NFL, right? Like all God-fearing guys, family men, right? I mean, a lot of the guys already had, 4 kids, some of them in high school, right? But they understood the value of family, and they didn't, they knew what the real priorities were, right? And where football kind of fell in that, right? And going from BYU to that, I couldn't have asked for like a better transition, because I couldn't say the same thing about going to the 49ers when I was there, right? Like when I went to the 49ers and was in camp with the 49ers for that short little bit, complete opposite. It would be exactly as, what the public would assume the locker room is like, right? Which is very individualistic, right? Like all about me type of environment, right? Yeah. Some of the players there were awesome that I totally got along with, but you could just tell it didn't have that same brotherhood as we had in the Colts, right? And, the fact that we all still keep in touch on a regular basis and are on texting threads and whatnot says everything.
And
right?
that's cool. And that's why it's a very special situation you had with the Colts, and it's no surprise that was the team of the decade. A lot because of that, I'm certain. Don't you think?
1,000%.
Absolutely.
That has everything to do with it, right?
So cool.
5 questions for the great Austin Collie.
Yes, these are the 5 quick. It'll be interesting how he matches up with Dennis and with Max and those guys. But
all right, you ready? 5 quick questions.
These are rapid fire. First thing that comes to your head.
Favorite sports movie?
Yeah, favorite movie.
Oof. Remember the Titans.
You know what? That's what Margin Hooks just said. So you go. That's
Must be a football
That's
thing.
mine too. Favorite singer or band?
Oof. Drake.
Nice.
It's a first
Drake. I like Drake.
First
yeah,
Drake,
that's our
okay.
first Drake, but I like Drake.
Favorite
Who did Max say?
Max said,
You guys remember?
I think he said some country. I have to go back and look because we took notes on it.
I thought it was and somebody we hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, it's like a
but
country thing.
He's just gotten into
I got
country.
a new one called Jelly
Or it
Roll
might have
that
been Dennis.
I never heard of Jelly Roll before. My nephew was with him. He's like this big fat guy. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Then I listened to his song "Son of a Sinner." I'm like, I kind of like this dude. It's
I
like
think
country hip hop rap.
I think Dennis said he was getting into country and he dropped the name.
Dennis.
right
No,
in
he
there.
is.
For all the
he
fans out
definitely
there,
is.
Jelly Roll's my new, just to give them a listen, see what you guys think. So, okay.
It.
Favorite,
I would attach that Post Malone as well.
yeah, oh yeah, I like Post Malone too. So, favorite breakfast cereal?
Cocoa Pebbles.
Yeah, when anybody goes at non-sugar cereal, we give them crap. So Cocoa Pebbles is
We
a
had
good
Cocoa.
choice.
We had a Cocoa
What
Pebbles
did
last
Dennis?
week.
Dennis probably gave you some like 100% fiber.
I think he said O's.
He might have said O's, and then he said he doesn't eat cereal because he eats boxes at a time. If he
He says
starts
if I start, I
eating cereal.
can't stop. So pretty much I do oatmeal and stuff. We're like, oh brother, right? So
yeah, no. Listen, but Dennis is the most judgmental foodie. Okay, like you can't have one unhealthy thing around that guy without just getting the worst stare down.
That's
right?
awesome.
And then you're getting interrogated while you're putting stuff like that in your body, which I find ironic because I remember going to the training table on a regular basis with that guy and him finishing off everybody's meal
everything
at
else,
the table.
of course. He's well. For the record, I had Frosted Flakes before I came here today. Okay, your favorite quarterback of all time doesn't even have to be somebody you played with. Just favorite quarterback.
Peyton.
Peyton Manning. All right.
Good answer. That might get you on Peyton's place. Answers like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then Austin, your favorite BYU memory. Let's finish with that.
Ooh, favorite BYU memory? Probably
Yeah.
beating UCLA in the Rose Bowl, or not in the Rose Bowl, but in the Vegas Bowl.
Oh yeah.
With the Manu Maliuna's block.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a great game. Great game. First bowl game after that I'd ever been to, and had the opportunity to kind of pull in a lot of catches and be pretty active that game, and that was fun.
That was a fun one. And Ethan Monomaliu, I can't even say it right now. Ethan Monomaliu. There we go. Comes up with a block. That's one of the most memorable games in BYU history. That's a great one. Love it.
Austin, thank you for joining the show. We hope to have you back again.
You're the best, Austin.
And appreciate your stories.
Give Brooke and the whole gang some love from me and your whole family. We love the Collies.
I will. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, Austin.
Austin Collie, he stands alone at BYU with what he did in that single season.
Anybody asked for like the greatest receiver in BYU history? It's right there. It's not a question.
Our next guest tonight has coached 46 All-Americans and 3 national champions in track. He's won 17 conference championships in cross country. As a runner himself, he's a national champion, a school record holder, a 2-time Olympian. Our pleasure to welcome the BYU Hall of Fame coach and runner Ed Eyestone to the Wise Guys. Coach, welcome. Hey, wait a sec. Where's that mustache?
Dave says the Wise Guys, huh? Well, the mustache is on hiatus for a few months.
What?
I grew out a really nice bushy one over the summer.
Yeah.
And then my wife said, honey, you look a little older with that. And it came off within 60 seconds.
See, so Lynn knows the right stuff to say, right? It's just she didn't say, I don't like the way that looks. She goes, no, hon, it's okay, but you look older. That thing was off.
Yeah.
Like that day.
So vanity wins out in the end. And that's why I'm taking my glasses off as well. I can't see you guys now, but...
Hey, we look fantastic, and so do you. We're all older, and we can't see.
And fantastic.
In the words of Bill Murray, like, hey, we look pretty good as far as you know.
As far as you know. Hey, school's been in session for a couple weeks now. There's 36,000 students on campus. Have you gone out and been able to find another Connor Mance?
I think there's always a Connor Mance waiting in the wings. And while I was waiting for you guys to come up, I was just texting a few of my recruits because that's what coaches do.
Yes, it is.
when they're waiting. I think the next Connor Mantz already is on campus, and hopefully I'm getting ready to sign the next Connor Mantz is after that. So,
really?
We have a really good team. I'm really excited for our group of guys. And, whenever you lose your superstar, there's a vacancy there. And you always wonder who's going to be the guy that will step up. And we've had several guys that were there that were great supporters of Connor Mantz. I mean, Casey Klinger finished in the top 10 at NCAAs, which isn't exactly chopped liver. And I think he is poised to improve on his top 10 performance at the NCAA meet from last year.
When you think
joining him, we have a transfer who graduated from Weber State University to our north, who had been I think a couple years back, a top 20 guy.
Right.
Christian Allen,
right? Yeah.
Christian Allen, yeah. And those two, in fact, we did a workout today, 10 by 1,000 with 60 seconds recovery. I think, Dave, you did that workout just the other day, I think.
Thursday.
These guys, I tell the story about how when we lived up by each other up in Layton and Kaysville, when I would be running up the road and you would say, geez, Blaine, how long have you been running? You look exhausted. And I would say, Ed, I just left the house. Why are you dogging me like this? And Ed would have just finished like 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever he went out and run. He was fresher than me, and I just lived around the corner, running up through his neighborhood there.
Well, that was about 20 plus years ago and 40 plus pounds ago.
Hey, look, for both of us,
Ed.
Before we close the book on Connor, to put in perspective for Cougar Nation, I mean, this is your Jimmer Fredette. This is your Ty Detmer. This is your Tina Gunn. You just go down to Violet Zavodnik. You go to these spectacular athletes that don't come around very often. Right. And you had the good pleasure of spending a lot of time with Mantz, and you helped turn him into a 2-time national champion. That is something to celebrate. And also, man, those only come along once every blue moon, don't they?
Yeah, they don't even come along once in a career. For most people, since Connor Mantz as a 2-time national champion in cross country, there's only, I think, been 4 or 5 of those. I don't know. Check the stats on that. But so yes, it's been a wonder, and it's been fun because I'm able to continue to work with him. He's now taken on the professional ranks. Yeah. And just last week or 2 weeks ago, won the U.S. championship over 20K, which is about half marathon length. And he is preparing to run his debut marathon at Chicago on October 9th. And I think he's going to hit that one out of the park as well. If there's anyone who's going to be suited to the marathon, it's Connor Mantz. So it's just been a great privilege and pleasure to work with him, and to be able to continue to work with him as he's kind of moving in the professional ranks now has been very fun. And we're looking forward to his debut on October 9th at Chicago. And we'll stay tuned. He has some very lofty goals, and it's going to be fun to see how he does it at 26.2 miles.
Ed, you did that. You went from 5 to 10 to the marathon and found a home in the marathon professionally and as Olympian. What do you think? Does he is he the kind of guy that has the work ethic and all of what he needs physically to maybe be an Olympian in the marathon?
Oh yeah, no question about it in terms of having physically what's required, and mentally certainly as well. There is an element of luck that kind of comes together on that race day on Olympic trials, on that day in Olympic trials. You can theoretically be the American record holder and go into that race, and if you just have an off day or get a blister or side ache or whatever, or don't fuel properly, then you have to wait for 4 more years. But yes, I think Connor Mantz has all the tools necessary. I think he's as strong mentally as anybody out there. And, the marathon game has improved, since 88 and 92 when I had the chance to run in the Olympics for the U.S. But certainly he's going to be, I believe, one of, if not our best American marathoner by the end of this year. He'll be in the conversation.
Wow. It's interesting, back in our day. So Ed and I were in school at the same time. We had Doug Padilla with us. We had some great time.
Ed, you're a lot younger than Blaine. I'm not finding that for a second.
Ed and I are the same vintage, and we're willing to admit it. And it was a great time at BYU and in all sports, right? Like our track and field and our cross country, and we had Olympians running for us, and we had national championships.
Champion.
Yep, we had baseball team playing in the College Worlds. It was like Danny was taking our basketball team to the Elite Eight. It was a phenomenal time. But I remember talking to Doug Padilla and talking to him about Ed, and Doug's like, well, I'm a kind of a finesse guy. He says, Ed, like, he's just a machine. He will just physically and mentally, he knows how to take himself as far as you can take yourself physically and mentally, and then just back off right when he gets to that point. And that's a rare thing for somebody to have that. Does Connor Mance have that? I mean, this is Doug, who knows what he's talking about, saying, no, Ed is a machine.
Doug was coming from a good place too. And I think part of that was he knew I didn't really have the raw talent, at least in terms of the speed side. See, Doug Padilla, the reason why he's a finesse guy is he didn't want to run any faster than he had to, because he had this incredible gear at the end where if he was with you, he would beat you by a mile, okay, over just the last 400, which is hard to do, right? So whereas I was the guy at the other, slow twitch side of the spectrum, who, if I was going to win, I had to grind you into the ground from the very first few steps. And I think Connor Mance is maybe a little bit more of a happy medium between Doug Padilla and myself, in that he has run some phenomenal times, in the 1,500 meters, which is the kind of metric equivalent to the mile. It would probably equate to about a 3:53 his time for 1,500 meters, 3:54 maybe for the mile. So he's got some really top end speed, yet he also has that kind of grit, drive, and ability to take people into what I've referred to, and it's almost become cliched at this point, into the Mance, pain chamber, where he just enjoys seeing how hard he can push the race, and it's a survival of the fittest.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ed Eyestone, BYU cross-country coach since 2000, track coach since 2013, on with us on the Wise Guys. Big meet Saturday in Big 12 country at Oklahoma State in the Cowboy Jamboree. On the men's side, it features 15 of the top 30, including number 1, Northern Arizona, number 2, Oklahoma State, number 3, Stanford, BYU's number 4, and number 5, Colorado. And on the women's side, the Jamboree features 10 ranked opponents, including number 3, Oklahoma State, number 3, Colorado. They're tied, number 5, Stanford, Washington, number 6, BYU's number 7. Is this where you get a really good glimpse at what you got?
Yeah, you certainly did your homework there, because the schools that are the players in the game this season are all going to be there. I don't know that everyone's going to be showing all their cards at this, and I don't know that we will either. It's early in the year. I certainly plan on running all my people. I think between now and Nationals is that Saturday before Thanksgiving, so we've got a month and a half, 2 months to go. There'll be some improvement. There'll be some shuffling, but the team is starting to take shape, and I think we'll get a chance to see how our team in this incarnation at this point in the season does against NAU and Oklahoma State on their home course. I think the reason why Oklahoma State is going to be particularly formidable is because it is on their home course, and this course is a tough one. This course is kind of the Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest of the cross-country courses in the NCAA. It got a lot of hills in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and they constructed a course such that it takes advantage of all of those hills.
So a lot of up and down in this one. BYU clearly has established themselves under your tutelage as a national power in cross-country and track. What's this transition going to be like into the Big 12? Does it matter? Like, were you a national power anyhow? Is the Big 12 going to matter? Can you compete in that league right away? Is it going to be good for the program?
I think it's going to be excellent. I think it'll be a great opportunity for us. I mean, if in cross country, I mean, there's 2 different sports going on here, right? Actually, 3 if you go cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track.
Right.
But in cross country, I think Diljit's women's team and my men's team over the last 6 years or so, if you would just score the national meet, us against the Big 12 schools, I think we win that 4 out of the 6 years.
Oh, nice.
Like
yeah.
Okay.
So absolutely compete.
So I think on cross country immediately we're going to be expected to be battling Oklahoma State. Obviously they're ranked number 2 in the nation right now, so they're ranked ahead of us. So they're a Big 12 opponent. Iowa State, who draws heavily from recruits from East Africa, have done very well at the national meet as well. So I think we'll will certainly be factors. And I think Tom and the administrators are kind of hoping that we're going to be one of the team that immediately can make an impact and hopefully be one of the first teams that ends up with a conference title. So it's exciting for us. Excuse me, not that WCC has necessarily been weak sauce, because we've had Portland in there, which Portland has been a perennial top 10 team as well. And fortunately, at the conference level, I think we've taken them on quite well, over the last decade or however long it's been that we've been there. But they've always been very strong. But I think the Big 12 is going to be a little deeper in regard to that. Now, then we flip over to the track side of things. Yeah, you gotta realize, especially with Texas and Oklahoma in there right now. Now they'll be gone eventually. We're not sure when exactly. But then some of the other teams that are in there are sprint powers. Okay, so excuse me. Traditionally, we're gonna have to play some chess in regard to how we're going to get the most points out of our pool of track and field athletes. But I think by emphasizing our strengths and continuing to work on those areas that will be other schools' strengths, that we can get in it and score the points necessary to, again, be very competitive at the indoor and the outdoor track side of things as well.
One more question before Blaine hits you up for 5 super quick questions.
We got our 5 super fast, just top of your head ones, but we got one more before that.
Here's a tough one that you can change the world if you can explain this one. But how do you get kids to run faster? You recruit the elite players, runners in the country, and you get them in your program, and then you just need them to be a little bit faster, and they're already maxed out. How do you teach kids to run faster?
Well, I think it's like anything. My old catchphrase is consistent competence equals eventual excellence. It's kind of I know I need to trademark that. It's C squared equals E squared. And
consistent competence. Wait, we got to write this down.
That in the math
consistent
department.
Competence equals. I'm writing it down.
Eventual excellence. And so really, we're just talking about consistency over time. You don't need to hit it out of the park every time you're up at the bat, but you need to make contact. And the same thing pertains to your workouts, your work ethic. You're just showing up and you're being into it, you're buying into the culture, and then, showing up day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And eventually the cream rises to the top, and eventually that work will pay off. And whether you're just an athlete who was lucky enough to be the last walk-on that we're able to keep because of roster restrictions, that person is going to get better according to their talent and their consistency, consistent competence in their workouts. And then if you're a blue chip athlete who we've been fortunate enough to recruit in a number of those, then the same thing would apply. And then you get the guys in the middle who maybe weren't developed, and you didn't know they had that blue chip. They certainly weren't blue chips when they maybe came in, but because of late maturation or because they weren't in a high school program that was really well developed, and they get in a program and they see guys like a Connor Mantz or a Casey Klinger, and the good that they're doing, and they start working with them on a regular, consistent basis, and boom, magic happens.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, we just had Austin Collie on.
Magic happens.
So magic happens is his. You got the C squared equals E squared, and he has the magic happens, right? When you're doing things on and off the field of play.
Mine might not be quite as controversial.
No, not quite. Not quite the same as the Utah comment, but yeah, it's hey, great leadership within your program and guys that have that work ethic and all that, setting an example and lifting all ships is a great concept. And when you got a program rolling, it keeps rolling because of that. So that's
Ed,
cool.
Before we get to the 5 questions, I'm looking at all the things going on behind you. It looks like a mission president's office. Are those all companionships you got up there, or are they recruits?
Are those your athletes or are those your recruits?
No, those are our athletes.
Okay.
I just keep them there because we have different groups. We're the largest, when you put our men's and women's team together, we have, 130 athletes or so. So it's nice to kind of have them there, especially as we get into track season and know the coaches that are monitoring each one of those and over them. So they're wonderful. And the great thing is each one of them have wonderful, amazing stories. and have their own journeys that they're going on. And we have people like an Ashton Reiner who won a national championship in the javelin this last year, who went through her own difficult journey in terms of did very well her freshman year, and then her sophomore year pops the elbow, has to go under Tommy John surgery. That's successful, comes back, was ready to go to her first meet. COVID hits, and then she had to wait for a time to, for COVID to pass.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, she's one of the top ranked athletes in the nation, and has just a tough time at her sophomore year at the regional meet, and then comes back her junior year and wins the national championship. So
fantastic.
So many good stories.
130 stories, not all ending necessarily in a national championship, but all going on their journeys as student athletes. And we're just very fortunate as a track and field staff and cross country staff to get to mentor them through this journey.
Well, I've got, and we had Ashton on the show with us. I love Ashton. She's married to tight end Lane Lunt on the football team.
Yeah.
So we're recruiting their children already, even though they don't have any, but we're ahead of time recruiting them. And I love Ashton's mindset and work ethic, because she's telling me, I've got to get better. My technique's not great. It's going to get better. I'm going to stay healthy, and I'm going to be in the Olympics. And I'm like, I love it. I love her mentality, because that's the mentality you have to have. She's awesome. And you have so many awesome athletes. Ed knows I love track and field. I hosted the track banquet for a few years back in the olden days, and our kids all ran track. I think it's one of the great sports on the face of the earth. Man, BYU's right at the top of the national conversation every year in both cross country and track and field. It's great.
Let's test your endurance with 5 quick questions.
Okay.
You ready? Yeah. Here we go. Favorite sports movie?
The basketball Hoosiers.
Hoosiers.
Okay.
You and Marie Osmond and me. That's a
no,
threesome.
and it was also our new women's basketball coach.
And the women, Amber Whiting.
Amber said she likes that
my
one
daughters,
too.
My daughters would refuse to watch a sports movie. Okay. And then I told them, you got to watch this movie, because in this movie, one of the kids gets a shot to win the game, and he does a granny shot. And so they went, oh, that sounds cool. I kind of want to watch that. So they ended up watching it for that scene. They love that movie.
All right.
It's classic.
Hoosiers it is. Favorite singer or band?
Singer or band? I'd say the Eagles.
That's classic.
Classic rock.
Yeah, Dave
right
and I can agree with that one. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh, breakfast cereal. Probably go with Frosted Mini Wheats.
Hey, one of our live streamers thought you were going to pick McFarland as your favorite movie.
Yeah, I mean, some people say Chariots of Fire. You got to go with that. Those are great. I don't mind the running movies, but sometimes when you're so enmeshed in the running, then you're picking up everything that is wrong about, Prefontaine. That Prefontaine Without Limits. Oh, that they look so fake, so staged, or whatever. So yeah, but people are probably saying the same thing about the basketball 1950s era that they demonstrated in Hoosiers, but I love that.
Hoosiers, and I appreciate this Frosted, because you know what Frosted Mini Wheats is? That's a fake healthy cereal. It's wheat, but then they just cake it with sugar.
I know.
So it's a fake
awesome.
Healthy cereal. I appreciate that Ed chooses that.
Okay, well I'll just take the regular shredded wheat.
No.
With little bales of hay.
We make fun. Ed, we make fun of people on this show that don't admit that they like sugar cereal.
The cattle can eat those. We
respect Frosted Mini Wheats. Okay,
my dad. That's the only cereal we would eat as kids is the original, because it was healthy. So as an adult now, I'm still trying to give Dad,
it's so fun.
Salute, but I go with the frosted kind.
Favorite running shoe?
I just run in the Nike Pegasus.
Nike Pegasus, okay.
Pegasus.
Yeah, I mean, we're a Nike school, right? So I've got to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want more Pegasuses in the S, you need to say that.
There's a whole list of these, but maybe there's a favorite. Your favorite accomplishment as a runner?
Oh, I think making the Olympic team twice in the marathon. Anytime you get a chance, ever since my professional baseball dreams were bashed as a junior high athlete, and I had to start running track because there was no cuts in track, then my goals shifted from being the MVP of the World Series to making the Olympic team. So certainly making those 2 Olympic teams was something that was unforgettable and a great honor for me to represent my country.
Well, BYU is fortunate to have you, and we're fortunate to have you on our show tonight. And we wish you the best of luck in Oklahoma, and we hope you'll come back on our show again.
We love it, and give Lynn and the family our love. We're grateful they give us you for a little bit here and spend some time with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Go Cougars.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Ed.
The great Ed Eyestone, Olympian, head coach, and, mentoring so many outstanding student athletes at BYU, and happy to have him on the Wise Guys.
Ed and Lynn lived by us when we lived in Davis County for all those years. He was coaching up at Weber, and we lived right around the corner from him. So we moved to Provo, and Ed's been down in Provo, and I find out Ed's out walking the dog. He lives around the corner from us still. The Eyestones and the Fowlers can't live far from each other, or the world's not in the right place. Exactly.
Hey, next Tuesday on After Further Review, DJ, if you can put that up, we're going to break down the Wyoming game. Then we're going to set the stage for Utah State. Cowboy up right there. You see that? Tuesday night, 7 Eastern, 5 Mountain on the free BYU TV app before an all-new Wise Guys on ysguys.com, Twitch, and YouTube. And then we got Thursday Night Football next week, which will be cool. BYU and Utah State on ESPN.
And next week, to remind, we got Andrew Rich, former defensive back, former safety, great hitter, and Riley Nelson. We felt it was appropriate to have Riley on to help us preview that Aggie game. And Riley knows all things Cache Valley for sure.
Let's roll out a couple of picks, and then we'll say goodnight and send you into the week. So far in our competition, I'm 24-3, you're 20-7. I went Washington, you went Michigan State.
No, I just pick stuff because of teams I like, not because they're any good. I do this with my heart. It's not about.
And everybody is following along, especially Vegas, because they want to know which way we're going on games.
So
number 5 Clemson this week at number 21 Wake Forest.
Clemson's back. They get this one.
That's going to be a good game at Wake Forest, but I think you're right. Number 17 Baylor goes to Iowa State.
I'm rooting for Baylor, and I do think they're going to win. And I think they're underrated at number 17.
Here's a tough one. Number 20 Florida at number 11 Tennessee. I'm going Tennessee.
I'm going Tennessee, and I think that I don't know. Florida got a lot of credit for beating Utah, and I think Utah was a lot like BYU or I don't know. I don't think Florida's as good as people think. Tennessee for
Florida, South Florida should have beat them last week. Number 22 Texas at Texas Tech. I saw a tweet today that the Red Raiders have sold out their facility.
They're going to throw it all over the place, and in the end, Sarkisian and Texas is going to win.
Okay, I'm going Texas Tech on that one.
Okay, that's where we're going to be different.
Number 10 Arkansas at number 23 Texas A&M. Arkansas will be in Provo mid-October.
This is where I'm going with my heart. I think it's so hard to play at A&M, but I'm still going to go with Arkansas because I want them to keep winning until they come to Provo.
I'm going to go with Arkansas because A&M hasn't figured out their quarterback, even though they did beat Miami.
Well, and Arkansas's got a gauntlet before they play BYU. They play like 3 crazy good teams, so I'm rooting for them.
Utah's at Arizona State. Herm Edwards was fired on Sunday.
Arizona State's awful. Utah's going to win.
UNLV at Utah State. The Aggies will be here next Thursday.
I think Utah State's going to win at home, although UNLV's got off to a pretty decent start.
I'm going UNLV on that one.
So you and I have 2 different ones.
USU. And then Wyoming at BYU, Saturday night.
Yeah, I got BYU by 20.
Okay, so we've got, we'll have a few
so you got UNLV
makers.
and I've got Utah State. That's the one. And then you have, who else did you pick different?
I picked Texas Tech to beat Texas.
Okay, so those are our 2 different ones.
This day in history, September 20th, a couple of things I think are really interesting. 1814, the Star-Spangled Banner is released as a song.
Yep, in 68, Mickey Mantle hit his final home run, number 536.
1973, the Battle of the Sexes. Billie Jean King beats Bobby Riggs in tennis.
Yeah, but Billie Jean was great, and Bobby was not good at that
but
time.
That was the
a big
Battle
deal.
of the Sexes.
Cosby Show debuts on NBC in 84.
That was a big deal. 1990, East and West Germany ratify reunification.
That was huge. So that all these other things pale in comparison to that. In 2001, President Bush declares war on terror in joint sessions of Congress.
Remember that.
Yep.
Maybe you overlooked 2011 when you said the other thing was Carly Rae Jepsen released Call Me Maybe.
But the reason that's big to you is because she performed it at Stadium Fire.
She did do that.
Call me maybe. Boom, doom,
1917, birthday, Red Auerbach. Boston Celtics, 9 NBA World Championships.
Great friend of Danny Ainge.
And our Lavelle Edwards send-off quote tonight, after the Cougars won the Cotton Bowl over Kansas State.
He said this: "We're the only team in NCAA history to win 14 games in a season. It was just a great experience, and I can't say enough about it. People don't know how difficult it is to get up for 15 games.
15 games in college.
Amen to that. 14 victories that year. Pretty amazing.
Fantastic.
Next week,
Andrew Rich, Riley Nelson.
Can't
and
wait
we'll
to
get
have
you
him
ready
on.
for BYU and Utah State. So Blaine
Thanks.
and I will see you Saturday night at 6 o'clock Mountain Time on BYU Sports
day.
Nation Game Day. 2 hours. We'll get you ready for
Hey, and if you're at the game, come
ball game.
over by the set because we're outside the stadium now in Cougar Walk. Come see us. It's pretty fun.
Say, hey, we watch or
listen to
listen to the
Wise
Wise
Guys.
Guys. Podcast will be up tomorrow. You can get us all on YouTube, Twitch, wiseguys.com. We encourage you to subscribe and join us. We're not going anywhere.
Thanks for hanging with us for a few extra minutes tonight. We had 3 phenomenal guests tonight.
Margin Hooks, Austin Collie, and Ed
It was
Eystone.
somebody said earlier, they tweeted this was like a candy store of wide receivers, which it was. And then to have Ed cap it off, BYU's great cross-country and track and field coach, was just a great night for guests tonight.
It's like we hit the trifecta.
Yep. Thanks for hanging with us.
Thank you. The Wise Guys is out, and the two of us will see you next
See you next
Tuesday.
week.